presentation of Fox Sports.
We are Baltimore. We are Detroit.
Tigers baseball on Fox Sports Detroit is presented by
Bell Tire.
Well, with a precious few days remaining in spring camp this year, good to see Miguel Cabrera back with the Tigers. He'll be batting third and playing first base today, and another picture-perfect day for baseball. Welcome to Joker Marchant Stadium. We're at Publix Field here today. Spring training baseball features the Detroit Tigers and the Toronto Blue Jays. Hi, good everyone, and welcome to Tigers Baseball. Mario and Pembo alongside Rod Allen. Thrilled to have you with us here today. And Rod, it's getting down to the nitty-gritty here in spring camp. Good to see, though, the Tigers have a lot of the regulars in the ballgame today. You've got Jordan Zimmermann. He'll take the mound. Miggy Kinsler back in there. Should be fun today.
Well, Miggy, he scared the Tigers just a little bit when he tweaked his back in the first game of the WBC, but he has pronounced himself healthy. We do know Miguel has a high tolerance for pain. He's not going to be out of there on opening day. When you look at Ian Kinsler, this guy's just a baseball player. Stellar performance for the United States in the WBC. He's back in there today. But the guy that I'm most interested in watching today is Jordan Zimmermann. The Tigers really need Zim to step up here the last couple of starts of spring training and pitch the way that he's capable of pitching.
All right, we've got a busy day again here today. John Keating is with us. He'll roam around the ballpark, and also in-game today, Mr. Tiger Al Kaline will join us in the booth as well, so make sure you stick around. Coming up here this afternoon, fresh off the World Baseball Classic, he's a hero indeed. Ian Kinsler back in the Tigers lineup. Stay with us. Tigers, Jays from Lakeland next. Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium in Lakeland, and we check out the weather forecast today, brought to you by Ace Hardware and the Scotts Company. Here's what it looks like at the ballpark today. 79 degrees our game time temperature, a little bit humid as well, but perfect weather for baseball here this afternoon. Here's the starting lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays, presented by the Metro Detroit Chevy dealers. Not too many regulars for the Jays. They've got Carrera, Petit, and Kenrys Morales at the top of their lineup. Ullman, Siciliani, and McBroom in the middle. Elmore, Height, and Jonathan Davis rounding it out. So really only just a couple of starters for the Toronto Blue Jays. They do have a split squad, so many of their players remaining back in Dunedin today. Jordan Zimmermann is on the mound, ready to go to work, and here we go. The first pitch of today's ball game is fouled back by Ezequiel Carrera. Zimmermann today presented by Family Heating, Cooling, and Electrical.
You know, the last time that Jordan pitched in a big league game down here in spring training, it was March 15th against the Atlanta Braves. He only lasted 2/3 of an inning that day and gave up 4 runs in that contest.
The chopper to the shortstop, Iglesias, and Carrera is out, 1 gone.
He has had some work since then, but he has to, he got his work down on the minor league side in between that start and this particular start.
Here is Gregorio Petit, the shortstop for the Jays, stepping in.
Well, they really need Jordan to step up here, Mario, and pitch not necessarily the way that he pitched last April when he was 5-0 with an ERA that was under 1, but somehow find that guy that pitched that month in between where he was at the end of the year.
You know, when you talk about Zimmermann, a lot has been made about Boyd and Norris, the young guys, and of course Sanchez trying to bounce back from a bad year. But Jordan Zimmermann, you're right. I mean, for a veteran guy, you hopefully worry less about him, but his spring has not been a strong one so far.
It really hasn't. And the key for me today is watching the life on the fastball. He'll have some fastballs. He'll run inside, outside. He'll also elevate some fastballs, four-seam variety, along with the cutter and the curveball and the changeup.
Petit slaps it foul down the right field line.
I was talking to Alex Avila today about the evolution of the elevated fastball. And we just saw a fastball upstairs there to Petit by Jordan Zimmermann. He says it looks so good to the hitters that everybody wants to swing at that pitch.
Zim has Petit in the hole, and that is chop foul.
You know, Alex also told me something that, you know, a lot of us understand, that everybody these days are trying to lift the baseball. Everybody's trying to hit home runs now. And it's easier to lift the ball that's down in the strike zone. But when you have the pitchers that have 92-mile-per-hour fastballs, 93-mile-per-hour fastballs, if they throw it just a tick above the belt buckle, very difficult for hitters to lift that ball out of the ballpark.
Well, it seems that you don't necessarily have to throw it 96, 97, 98 up top. As you mentioned, 92, 93 usually gets the job done.
Yep.
1 ball and 2 strikes on Gregorio Petit, just underway from Lakeland today. Another bouncer back up the middle. Ranging left is Iglesias, and there are 2 gone. Checked in now with our 3rd member of our broadcast crew, the incomparable John Keating.
You guys know this because you're rock stars. But walking around Publix Field at Joker Marchand Stadium, everybody here is from Michigan. You ask them where they're from, and they do the Michigan thing, so they point to where they are in the state of Michigan. This ballpark is dramatically different from when we were here in mid-February. We interviewed everybody with a pulse back then before the game started. Man, what a job they have done. And I'll be chatting with some of the Tigers as today's coverage continues. We'll visit with James McCann coming up. Ian Kinsler just back from the World Baseball Classic. And Jordan Zimmermann, hopefully, after a stellar outing for the Tigers here today, guys.
All right, Keats, we will certainly keep John busy this afternoon here at Publix Field.
How about Keating, man, in mid-season form?
He didn't miss a beat. He does not miss a beat. Kenrys Morales batting here with 2 outs.
He can hit a little bit. Last couple of years, he's been in the Kansas City Royals uniform, and man, was he stellar. Batting right in the middle of that Kansas City batting order.
Well, they lost Encarnacion to the Indians, but Morales was signed immediately just about after the end of the World Series last year, and he will pretty much take up his spot, or they hope, in terms of power production.
Well, if you look at his numbers of the last couple of years and the fact that he's off to a real nice start with his new team, the Blue Jays, this spring hitting at .364. He had good years in Kansas City. He had 30 homers last year in a big ballpark.
Here's the 2-1. Off the end of the bat foul, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
There are many that believe that Kenrys Morales' numbers that he posted the last couple of years in Kansas City, those numbers will go up when he gets the chance to go to Toronto, where Rogers Center is a much more hitter-friendly ballpark.
Now Zimmermann ready with the 2-2 pitch. And Morales fouls it off. The Blue Jays use some analytics in terms of whether or not they wanted to acquire Kendrys Morales. And that's a great point you bring up, because not only Rogers Center a much better home run hitting ballpark, but really all the parks in the East are much better than the parks in the Central.
Great point.
So they feel that, you know, when he rolls into Camden and Fenway and, of course, his home park at Rogers Center, the power production will at least be the same as last year, if not better. Down he goes, and a swing and a miss, and a good start for Jordan Zimmerman. A 1-2-3 first. Catch a ball game for the Burr Mountain left field here in Lakeland. No score as we go to the bottom of the first. Tigers starting lineup today presented by the Southeast Michigan Ford dealers. Good to see a lot of the regulars back in there as we wind down camp, including Kinsler, Castellanos, Miggy back at first base, Victor DHing, Upton, Moya, Avila, Jones, and Iglesias for the Tigers here this afternoon. And they are facing the offerings of Casey Lawrence.
And Casey Lawrence making his 7th appearance of the spring training. This is his 4th start. He's had a good spring. He's got an ERA at 3.97, just a shade under 4. And he's pitched 11 1/3 innings so far in the Grapefruit League.
So here's Kinsler. He in 263 this spring before heading off to the WBC. He looks at a strike.
And it looks like Casey's got a nice little sink piece. Looks like he likes to work on the inside corner and the outside corner, watching him warm up with his sinker today.
No balls and 2 strikes on Ian. Kinsler's solid year last year. In fact, better than solid. 28 homers, 83 RBIs, and he scored 117 runs.
Here's what I'm talking about with Casey Lawrence. Look at that sinker. That ball started right down the middle and ran about a foot in on the hands of Ian Kinsler.
Ian takes a fastball up high, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Kinsler, of course, had the big home run in the finale in the World Baseball Classic, the 2-run shot to get the USA off and running. They would go on to beat Puerto Rico 8-0. Ooh, he tied him up and down he goes, 1 gone.
That sinker's nasty. The catcher sets up right down the middle of the plate because there's so much movement on the sinker ball that Lawrence is featuring here today. Watch your catcher all day today, Ullman, and he'll set up right down the heart of the plate.
Here's Nick Castellanos, who continues to have a really good spring for the Tigers. In fact, he leads the Tigers with 13 RBIs.
He's been balling.
340 this spring. Ball 1 to Nick. Now we're talking about that 2 spot in the Tigers lineup, Rod, and Castellanos making a bid. Are there any parts of his skill set do you think that lends to the 2 spot in the lineup?
I think a lot of them. The fact that, one, he's playing with a tremendous amount of confidence right now. His ball to bat skills are extraordinary. They've been that way since he put on a professional uniform. He can drive the ball the other way with a runner on first base when there's a huge hole there. And he doesn't strike out that often. And one other fact is the fact that he's not afraid to take at least 1 pitch if Ian Kinsler's in a running mood to allow him to run. So those are all real nice characteristics of having a productive number 2 hitter.
Driven deep to left field, down the line. That ball is way back, and that ball is way out of here.
Oh no, Nicholas, did you?
Oh my goodness.
Did you, Nicholas?
He cleared the berm out there in left field. And Castellanos has given the Tigers a 1-0 lead.
That is one of the furthest balls I've ever seen hit at Joker Marchant Stadium.
It's still going, I think. Wow. His 4th home run of the spring. Castellanos continues his TOR at base. Do you think he knew it?
Oh, he killed that.
Souvenir out there in left field. You're going to have to chase it, though. Here's Miguel Cabrera.
When you think about the Tigers 1 through 5 right now, even with J.D. Martinez being on the shelf for the first month of the season, I mean, you've got Kinsler, Castellanos, Miggy, V-Mart, and Justin Upton. There are very few teams that can boast the first 5 that have that kind of talent and those kinds of resumes that those guys have.
Yeah, the Tigers have not been bashful about throwing out offensive pieces on a nightly basis. They are a team that can certainly mash, and here is a big part of that, Miguel Cabrera. Miggy, of course, battling a bit of a crispy back that he injured during the WBC. He's back in the lineup today. Tigers have tried to be very cautious with him.
He said he tweaked one side and then he started to overcompensate while he was performing in the World Baseball Classic, and the other side of the back started to hurt, which is a natural thing to happen.
Cabrera given time. 38 home runs last year for Miguel and 108 driven in. Now the 1-2.
Miguel is one guy in the big leagues, and he's been this way for the better part of a decade now. If you're managing Miggy and he's healthy all year, you can simply pencil in 320, 330. You can pencil in 30 home runs to 35 homers, and he's going to drive in 110 to 120 runs, which is what he's done every single year he's been in the big leagues for the most part.
He will challenge for a batting title year in and year out. He's won 4 of them. Swing and a miss. Down he goes.
Nice pitch.
It's a second strikeout of the ball game early on here now for Casey Lawrence.
He got Ian Kinsler with a real nice sink ball inside that he tied him up with. Then he came back with a nice little slider down and away, located beautifully to the big fella.
John Gibbons, the manager of the Jays, who is not here today. Again, they have a split squad, was saying that Lawrence, who has been a career minor leaguer, is really opening some eyes this camp. And we've seen at least to a couple of batters in this inning that he's got some good stuff.
A lot of people, Mario, talk about the Toronto Blue Jays, and they talk about Donaldson. They talked about Encarnacion last year, Bautista, Tulowitzki. They talk about them from an offensive standpoint. But this team led the American League in earned run average last year, so they pitched too.
Chopped to short right field, and the second baseman Elmore will throw out Victor in the inning over. Tigers get a run in the Castellanos homer. Baseball on Fox Sports Detroit is brought to you by Comerica Bank, a part of Detroit and the community since 1849. Dodge. Visit Dodge.com or your local dealer today. And by Weingart's, everything from lawn to snow. Back here in Lakeland, Jordan Zimmerman back to the hill. He enjoys a 1-0 lead on the Nick Castellanos home run. For as far as that thing went, Rod, we should give him 2 runs for that.
I agree with that 100%.
Beyond the berm out in left field, a long homer.
He absolutely killed that baseball.
Mike Ullman leads it off, facing Zimmerman, who picked up a couple of ground balls and a strikeout in the first inning.
So far, Zim looks good. I mean, the ball is coming out of his hand very nicely. That last four-seam fastball was located beautifully at 94 miles an hour. One of the things that Zimmerman does the first 4 or 5 starts of spring training, he throws mostly fastballs. He's not concerned with his cutter, not concerned with his changeup or his curveball. He's more concerned in building arm strength. So a lot of fastballs thrown by Zimmerman early in camp.
The 1-2 is a tad low, 2-2. Well, Zim came out of the gate blazing last year, had that unbelievable month of April, was 5-0, and of course the neck problem started to crop in, a neck strain in July, and all of a sudden he struggled down the stretch.
Yeah, he never recovered. A couple of DL stints.
High fly ball to center field, hit well. Jacoby Jones moving back, and 1 away.
Well, partner, Brand has already announced that when the season begins, Justin Verlander will get the ball on the first day of the season in Chicago, and Michael Fulmer will get the ball on Friday at Comerica Park against the Boston Red Sox. But who gets the ball in Chicago those other 2 days is the million-dollar question.
Yeah, I mean, you can formulate your list any way you want, 1 through 5, and who you think the best are. But of course, you've got to consider the fact that Fulmer is going to pitch the home opener, which means you got 2 games to fill in Chicago. I think the way Matthew Boyd has pitched, he certainly has to be considered for one of those games.
Well, you know, Zim more than likely will get one of those, and I think Matthew Boyd has a nice opportunity of getting one as well, or Anibal Sanchez.
Nice play at first base by Miggy. Zim covers for the out.
Who said the big fella had a bad bat?
5 in a row retired now by Zimmerman. Well, of course, the Tigers today before the game also announced some cuts, and among those cuts, Rod, was Mark Lowe, and I know that that had to be a difficult cut for Brad to make.
It was a difficult, because when he did 2 years ago when he was in Seattle and Toronto, he was unbelievable, but the Tigers signed him to a 2-year deal, and he had a good month of April, but really could not get it going beyond that. And then when you add in the fact that he really struggled this spring, and there's just been some other guys that have really outpitched Mark Lowe.
There's a high drive to left field. Ball hit well. Upton going back to the track. And that is that. We'll talk more about the Tigers cuts when we return. Another 1-2-3 for Zimmerman. On top 1-0 as we go to the bottom of the second. Brad Ausmus, as we were mentioning, made some cuts before the game today. Among them, Mark Lowe. With more on that, here's John Keating.
Well, Brad said other pitchers were more deserving. That's what it came down to, and Mark Lowe wasn't exactly surprised that the Tigers, with a year left on his deal, basically gave him his unconditional release. But Brad also said, and talked about the human element to this game, that he is a great fit on any ball club, and that's why it was tough for him to give him that news today. And he said, Brad Ausmus said, I'm not really an emotional guy, but I almost shed a few tears. It might be one of the toughest cuts he's ever had to make, along with that of Jabba Chamberlain a season ago.
Hey, John, you've been around a lot of spring camps, and you know that for managers, it doesn't matter whether it's Jim Leyland or Brad Ausmus. You've been around a million years or just 1 year. Some of these cuts can be really tough on these guys.
Absolutely, because, you know, it's their livelihood. It's their future. And if they're not going to be here, now you've got to uproot families, and you've got to find another job somewhere, whether it's going down to Toledo or somewhere else, somebody else's minor league team, and build your career back up. And you make all the plans as if you're going to be a member of the Tigers going into this season. And for Mark Lowe and Anthony Gose, who also got the word that he is going down to Toledo today, you know, that it becomes tough.
You know, for Mark Lowe, I mean, you have to look at it also from a financial situation. If you're the Tigers, and they gave him every opportunity to live up to the 2-year contract that they gave him, but most teams aren't in the business of paying guys that are no longer going to be in their uniform, and they're going to have to watch Mark Lowe pitch for somebody else next year. There's no doubt about that.
But I think, Rod, when you look at the pure numbers, and, you know, for as much as you want to bring the best 25, I mean, there are just some times where, you know, regardless of the contract, you have to make the move.
Well, there's no doubt about that, and that's why they made that shrewd move today to eat the remainder of the salary. But I was talking about Lowe a couple of years ago when he was in Seattle and Toronto. This guy was one of the best relievers in all of baseball. Then all of a sudden last year, he just could not put it together. But to his credit, he kept his head up, and he really helped some of the other guys in the bullpen, and that's why the decision was so tough for Brad to release him today.
Well, we talked about it on our last telecast. Sometimes from year to year, relief pitching can be so fickle. The Tigers thought they had the answer in Lowe for the late innings when they signed him last year, but it just unfortunately did not work out here. Here's Steven Moya with 1 out. Moya 186 this spring, and he bounces one to the right side. It'll find a hole.
It's Moya's first action in the last 6 days. He's been battling some back spasms, and judging by the way that he's running, it looks like he still might not be 100% healthy. But with a week to go in spring training, Moya is still trying to make this 25-man roster.
He's got to get out there and play. Tigers have their second hit of this game. That'll bring up Alex Avila. Casey Lawrence out there for the Blue Jays.
Well, here's where he probably does his best work. We already talked about the fact that he's got a real nice sinker, so he's going to be looking for the ground ball here to try to get Alex to pound the ball into the ground. And Blue Jays are playing Alex Avila slightly to pull on the infield.
Lawrence last year split time between AA and AAA in the Jays organization. And Alex showing bunt, tried to drop one down that third base line.
It's the second time that we've seen Avila attempt to bunt down here in spring training, with teams shifting on him the way that they're probably going to do all season long. Why not take that bunt base hit every now and then down the third base line? And you know what else it does, Mario? With so many scouts here watching, scouts from other American League teams, at least put that thought in the teams that you're going to play in the future. You got to be careful with the Avila kid. He might just bunt down the third baseline for a base hit on occasion.
And he does it again. This time, though, bunts it right back to the mound. The runner will advance, but Avila is out. 2 gone.
Alex has to work on the bunting just a little bit because he tied himself up. One of the things that you have to do, you have to get the bat out in front of home plate. His bat is back too far, therefore he ties himself up. And once he makes contact with the baseball, he simply bunts it right back to the pitcher because the bat angle wasn't created to go down the third baseline.
Yeah, and really, Alex has not been a guy that has bunted all that much because he really didn't have a whole lot of speed in his major league career. So this is something that if he plans on doing a little bit more, I'm sure we'll work on a little bit more. 2 outs now for Jacoby Jones. It's been fun to watch him this spring, hasn't it? This guy's got a lot of tools and certainly is in the thick now. And with the injury to J.D. Martinez, certainly seems to have a pretty good shot of making this club.
You're absolutely right. I mean, Jay, he was going down to the minor leagues, I think, in my opinion, 100% before the news of J.D. Martinez going on the disabled list for the first 4 weeks of the season. But now, and Jacoby Jones, because he's performed so well in center field during the course of spring, he swung the bat well. He's hit with a little power. He's done nothing to disappoint anybody here. Therefore, he might just make that 25-man roster.
Well, Jones, one of those kids that has played infield, in fact, was a shortstop, can also play center field, and that in itself will tell you how good of an athlete that he is.
He loves center field. He says center field is probably his favorite position. He played center field in the Arizona Fall League.
One ball, two strikes on Jacoby.
Well, you know that more than likely Justin Upton is on the team, and Tyler Collins will make the team as well because he's out of options. But here are the other guys. There's 2 spots available for these 4. And Mikey Matuk, you've got Jacoby Jones, you've got Alex Presley, and also Steven Moya. And so here's what the Tigers will choose from to round out their remaining outfield with 2 spots probably taken up in Collins and Upton, depending on whether there's an injury the final week of the season.
Sawed him off that time, rolled up the middle, and it's going to be misplayed by the shortstop Petit. They're going to try and score the run, and now Moya hung up between third and home. He's in a rundown. Lawrence trying to run him back, and Moya will be tagged out to end the inning. That'll do it for the Tigers. No runs, 1 hit, 1 man left. One nothing as we go to the top of the third, and a reminder to get 8 Tigers games for just $49 with the Tigers April Digital Ballpark Pass. Tickets to 8 home games in April for just $49. Visit tigers.com/pass for more information. Here is Zimmerman going back to work in the third. Jake Elmore leading it off, and we check in now with John Keating standing by with James McCann.
All right, you've been around the block a little bit now. How different is this spring training for you now that you're established as the everyday catcher?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. You know, your schedule's a little bit more set in stone. You can kind of plan out workouts and whatnot, but it's just fun to play baseball.
As we understand it, one of the things that you're working on is your setup to get ready, and that's one of the little tweaks, one of the little mechanical tweaks that you're doing going into the start of the season. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so you know, one of the aspects of my game I've really worked on improving is my receiving and pitch framing metrics, or whatever you want to call it. So I did a lot of studying of different guys in the big leagues that you know, have good ratings, and we've made a few adjustments. And the big thing for me is you know, just staying as quiet as possible and being as, you know, ready early enough to where you know, there's no late sudden movements.
The metrics will make your head spin, won't they?
There's too much to really get into, so you just kind of look at what you can use and get rid of what you can't.
We're watching Jordan Zimmermann pitch today, and your chances to catch him this season. Obviously, it's important for him to bounce back from what happened last year with the injury. What are you seeing from him this spring, and how ready is he to start the season?
You know, I think he looks great. You know, the big thing for me is the velocity. Even in April, when he was so good, he was 90 to 92, and all spring long he's been, you know, 92, touching 95 at times. So that's really encouraging to see, and you know, his off-speed stuff looks good. And the big thing for me, regardless of his spring training numbers, which I couldn't even tell you what they are, is he's healthy, and he constantly saying how good his arm's feeling.
To that point, injuries are a part of your game. What's the feeling like in the clubhouse when you realize or you hear that J.D. Martinez is going to be out for 3 or 4 weeks from now?
It's tough to hear. You know, you understand that injuries are part of the game. A long season, there's going to be injuries, and you know, the goal is to limit those injuries. And a lot of times you look at teams that have success and they had, you know, good luck with injuries. Unfortunately for us, that's a tough start with JD, but we know he's going to come back strong and be a big asset for us once he does get healthy.
Mac, thanks for coming out. We appreciate it. We'll see you in Chicago.
All right, take care.
James McCann watching the Tigers and the Blue Jays here today, going into workout. Yeah, there's never a day off with these guys.
All right, Keith, thanks. Well, you know, McCann last year, Rod, we talked about this, 45% he threw out, which was the highest percentage since Pudge threw out 51% in 06. So he has really made his mark. There's a high fly to right, and Moya is camped under it for the first out of the inning.
You know, James got into it just a little bit there with John Keating talking about what he's been working on with the catching instructor and also bullpen coach Mick Billmeyer. Just setting up early enough so that when you set up, the glove is already still once the pitcher puts his eye on the glove. They don't want you moving while the pitcher's delivering the baseball, because if you do that, you can't get your hand in the proper position to present the baseball to the umpire so you can get the strike called. So it's minor stuff, but it's stuff that you have to work on. As you mentioned, there's nothing wrong with James McCann, the way he throws the baseball.
Jonathan Davis will step in now and look at a strike. You know, we talk about analytics for hitters and ultimate zone ratings, and, you know, we look at defensive mechanics for outfielders, but they're just as important, I think, as well for catchers. And a lot has to do with pitch framing, which seems to be a bigger and bigger thing every year.
No doubt about that. As a catcher, you have to put yourself in a position where your body's as quiet as possible and your gloves as quiet as possible when you do receive the baseball, so that you could present it to the umpire in a manner where he will call a strike for you.
Davis slaps it foul, back out of play. 0-2 the count on the Jays' number 9 hitter. 1 on, 1 out here in the third.
Meanwhile, Jordan looks good today. Lots of first pitch strikes. The ball's coming out of his hand nicely. He's gotten up to 94 miles an hour. He's thrown some good breaking balls. So this is very encouraging for me going into the beginning of the season, with Zimmermann being healthy and pitching as effectively as he has done so far here this afternoon.
Zim last year won 9 games. All of them came before the All-Star break, and he hit him. Barely grazed him, and Davis will take first base. Walking a hit batter here in the third. That'll bring up Ezekiel Carrera. Carrera's over 1 with a ground ball.
And Carrera's got a lot of speed. And Tigers fans know him a little bit from a little bit of time that he spent in their uniform. Therefore, Castellanos at third base, anchored on the grass, anticipating a possible bunt from Carrera.
Carrera, former Tiger, played in Detroit in 2014, just 1 season with the Tigers. And, you know, I thought he was a pretty good player. In a lineup that is filled with so many stars, or was last year for the Blue Jays, Carrera, one of those utility type guys, and one of those guys that just kind of fits into your lineup and does little things.
Yeah, he kind of found a home in Toronto.
The 0-1.
I said Toronto, but it's not Toronto. They say Toronto.
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 Yeah. Toronto. They get on you for that.
They sure have gotten on me in the past about that. You think I'd know by now.
Well, Encarnacion is gone from Toronto, but they still have some pretty good pieces in their lineup. Their outfield looks like Pilar, Bautista. You got Carrera and Upton as well. So a little bit of a different look this year from the Jays, but still a lot of their quality pieces. Pickoff throw a little bit tardy down there.
Yeah, that wasn't a good throw back to second base. Had it been a better throw, they may have been able to get Elmore had he thrown that ball on the shortstop side of second base. It ended up on the second base side, but if he throws that ball on the shortstop side and Iglesias does not have to reach for it across the bag, they might have gotten a pickoff there.
And Carrera looks at a ball outside, 2-1.
Already 14 pitches thrown for Jordan in this inning. He's gotten one out. He's hit one and he's walked one. Zimmerman doesn't walk many. And he certainly doesn't hit very many.
Jordan last year started the season his first as a Tiger with 24 and a third consecutive scoreless innings. That was part of that monster April that he had.
Great location with that last pitch at the bottom of the strike zone. 92-mile-per-hour sink peak.
2-2. Checked it. Did he go? He did. He went around. Eric Gilliam said he went, and Carrera is called out of there.
Last two pitches to Carrera, outstanding by Zimmerman. The first one was a 92-mile-per-hour fastball at the bottom of the strike zone. And then he came back with a real nice breaking pitch, same arm speed, located beautifully at the bottom of the strike zone, and Carrera couldn't hold up his swing.
2 gone now for Gregorio Petit.
Second strikeout of the afternoon for Jordan.
Petit bounced out his first time up. Former Angel signed as a free agent by the Jays this past January. He's been around the big leagues with a few different organizations, including Oakland, Houston, Yankees as well. Here's the 1-0. On the ground to the shortstop, Iglesias. For the force at second to retire the side, so nothing comes of the walk and the hit batter. We'll go to the bottom of the third in Lakeland. Here in Lakeland, Tigers on top 1-0, and see the Tigers play the Red Sox at Comerica Park Saturday, April 8th at 1:10 p.m. start. First 10,000 fans receive a free April in the D Trapper hat, courtesy of Fox Sports Detroit. For tickets, call 866-66-TIGER or visit tigers.com. They're hanging out there in Margaritaville today.
How about that?
Well, life's pretty good, man.
We can go out there after the ball game. I get your beverage.
All right, you buying?
We get water though. You have to 7th inning. You know, you can skip water around.
Water's free though.
Yeah. I'll buy yours though.
Here's Iglesias. He'll get it rolling here in the third. Iglesias, Kinsler, and Castellanos facing Casey Lawrence. Iglesias in the 9 spot here this afternoon, batting .308. He's had pretty good camp.
He performed very well batting in that number 9 spot last year. Brad, for a moment, put him up in the number 2 spot. He had success there as well, but by and large, that number 9 spot was a good spot for Jose. Didn't strike out very much, put the ball in play.
Chop left side of the infield on the backhand, Petit.
Ooh, nice communication there between Petit and the third baseman, Height. Called him off, told him I got it, and made a real nice, strong throw across the diamond.
Here's Ian Kinsler. Ian struck out in the first inning, 0 for 1.
He threw Ian Kinsler a couple real nice, hard sinkers inside. Expect Ian to make an adjustment second time up against Lawrence. And when you've never seen a guy before, it's tough on the very first at-bat of the game. Ian also loves to swing at the first pitch when you throw him a fastball.
Ian had some thoughts on playing in the WBC in terms of getting ready and how it affects you in spring training. And in regular spring camp, you know, hitters go up there, pitchers as well, just working on things.
Especially the veteran guys.
Yeah, especially the veteran guys. But he said, man, in the WBC, you got to get hits, man. And if you're a pitcher, you're not working on anything. You're coming after hitters. So that was a bit of an adjustment to him.
And guess what? If you didn't hit, you didn't play. I mean, you had to have success. I mean, I love what Jim Leland did in the World Baseball Classic. I mean, the guys that were hot were the guys that stayed in the lineup, and he had to get the other players to buy into that. And Ian Kinsler was one of those players that pretty much played every day during the WBC.
And Kinsler, of course, came through for Team USA with the big home run in the final game against Puerto Rico. He hit 28 home runs last year in the regular season for the Tigers, providing pop at the top of the lineup. He'll sky this one in the air to right center field. Siciliani is under it, and there are 2 gone.
Ian is ready to start the regular season, especially after playing in so many competitive games during the World Baseball Classic for the last couple of weeks. And I don't know about you, Mario, but I enjoyed so many of those games thoroughly, and I think the WBC took a huge step forward in making sure that that's a really nice event every 4 years.
Agree with that 100%. And I think some of that, at least stateside, had to do with the U.S. winning it. But there were some tremendous games. There was a lot of emotion being shown by all the teams in that tournament. Castellanos stands in, ball 1. But I think going forward, I think you're right. I think there's a little bit more interest now here in the United States.
Had a nice conversation with Nick today, and I was telling him that our last telecast just a couple of days ago, I just noticed that he looks like he's kind of patterning himself after Manny Ramirez.
This ball is hit deep to right field. It's going to be over the head of Siciliani. Extra bases for Castellanos, his second extra base hit of the game.
And he was telling me, Roger, absolutely right. He says he has watched a lot of video on the former Boston Red Sox, Los Angeles Dodger, Manny Ramirez, and the way that he holds his hands up above his head, or the way that Manny held his hands above the head. And then he says his hands also stay back long enough, and once that front foot hits the ground, he's able to go directly to the baseball. So he has worked long and hard at watching Manny Ramirez the entire offseason, and it looks like he's off to a tremendous start here.
Did he say why he chose Manny?
Well, he didn't say why Manny specifically, but I did say to you, many guys pattern themselves after Miguel Cabrera.
Right.
We hear guys talk about Miggy's swing 24/7, and guys across the league watching Miggy's video, trying to figure out what Miggy does when he's in the batter's box. And he said Miggy's swing didn't work for him because Miggy kind of tucks that front shoulder and drives it right back toward the pitcher. And he said that just didn't work for him. That kind of tied him up. So Nick keeps his hands a little higher, which allows him to get directly to the baseball. But you can't go wrong kind of patterning yourself after either of the two guys that we're talking about here, Manny or Miggy.
Not at all. And Cabrera shoots one on the ground up the middle into center field. That's a base hit. That'll score Castellanos, and Cabrera comes up with a 2-out RBI single.
That's a perfect example of what Nick Castellanos was talking about regarding Miguel Cabrera in that front shoulder. Watch how long Miggy keeps that front shoulder closed when he makes contact with the baseball. Look at the front shoulder. Now watch when he makes contact. That shoulder's closed. It's going right back toward the pitcher, and that allows Miggy to simply fight that ball off right back up the middle of the diamond. So he's 100 RBIs waiting to happen again.
So 2 at-bats was what the schedule was today for Cabrera, and he will be done for the afternoon. Navarro will pinch run and stay in the game at first base for the Tigers.
How good is Castellanos looking right now?
I'll tell you what, I know spring training you try not to get too excited, but wow. I mean, he hit one about 900 feet to left his first at bat, and then he shot one over the right fielder's head in that at bat.
Nice camera work as well by our crew down there, locking on that Miggy front shoulder, driving that ball right back up the middle. Our crew's in mid-season form.
They are. And there is the duo that provided the run here with 2 outs in the Tiger third.
Ooh, Nick looks good.
There's a chopper back up the middle, straight into the shift. And Victor is out to end the inning. Tigers get a run on a pair of 2-out hits. 3 in the books here in Lakeland. Tigers up 2-0. Fourth inning now here in Lakeland. Tigers have extended their lead to 2-0. It's a pleasure to be joined by Mr. Al Kaline. Mr. Tiger, I guess, is the official title. Who's the special assistant to General Manager Al Avila. And, well, Al, I mean, you've had a chance to see this team all spring long now. I know you like Nick Castellanos. We'll talk about him in a minute. But your general thoughts about how this team is kind of gelling here in the final month.
Well, you know, they got off to a bad start and wasn't doing anything right, but they've been playing much better baseball the last couple of weeks. It's been a different spring training because a lot of your best players, key players in the World Baseball Classic, and it's going to be interesting to see if these fellas can come back with the same intensity, because every pitch, every time at bat meant something in the World Baseball Classic. Now, you know, it's still spring training, but they'll get back on track, I think.
Al, I don't know about you, but I've thoroughly enjoyed Jordan Zimmermann in the way that he has thrown the baseball so far here today against this Toronto Blue Jays team. He looks like he's healthy, which is the most important thing.
I think you're exactly right. His location is not great yet, But he's still in 92 and reaching 94 every once in a while. And if he can stay healthy, you know, he's a bulldog out there, and he's going to give you everything he has. So if he can stay healthy, I look for him to have a really big year if he stays healthy.
Now, I know that Nick Castellanos has caught your eye, and, you know, he got to the big leagues at an early age. He was a high school draft choice, so he never did play, you know, the big-time college and had that kind of experience. I think sometimes we expect too much of the young players when they get to the big leagues first, but it looks like he is really starting to find that next level now.
Well, there's no question about it. Nicholas is actually our best player right now on the field. He is doing everything well. He's running well. His body looks great. He's big and strong, but he's very athletic. I think he's playing an outstanding third base right now, and I look for him to have the best year of anybody on our ball club. And that's saying a lot with Cabrera and other guys. But, you know, sometimes it takes a kid longer to mature and have a game plan, and look like Nicholas is having a game plan now every time he goes to the plate.
You know, we're talking about young kids, and obviously you came to the big leagues when you were very young, a teenager, as a matter of fact. But let's talk about Jacoby Jones for just a moment. What have you seen in Jacoby Jones in the outfield, his actions, and what might he need to work on to make sure he solidifies himself as an everyday big leaguer? Because he's going to get to the big leagues at some point in time.
Well, in my mind, and this is not carved in stone, but I think he's the best outfielder we have.
Ooh.
No question about it. Hands down, best outfielder, runner, thrower, getting a jump on the ball. Now, hitting, nobody really knows exactly how he's going to hit against really good pitching. But in my opinion, I think he's our regular center fielder.
Ooh, again, Mr. K-Line.
That ball down the left field line, going to roll to the corner. Kendrys Morales on his way to third base, and he will stand in there safely. It'll be a double for Mike Ullman.
All right, I say that because listening to Brad and Al Vila say we're going to take the best team we can to Detroit for opening day, and if that's the case, now, you know, I'm sure he's a young guy, and you have to think about free agency down the road,
right,
and so on and so forth. But if they're going to maintain that they're going to take the best team that we have right here, best players we have to Detroit, then in my opinion, and it would be Kobe Jones in center field.
Had a nice conversation with him today. He just seems to be one of those young kids that's not in awe of Mario and Al of what's going on around him. He's just having fun every single day and smiling and playing the game that he loves to play.
You know, he's going to have some problem, like every hitter is going to have some problem with guys that can throw hard, particularly have a little movement inside. But what I've noticed so much about him so far, with 2 strikes, he's willing to put the ball in play a little bit more instead of swinging and striking out a lot. So I think that's a big key, that a young guy has to learn how to cut down his stroke and put the ball in play. And then when you do that, and the way he can run, he can, you know, he make things happen.
Well, you can also make the argument that a lot of veteran players in baseball these days have gotten away from the 2-strike approach. It doesn't seem to be as prevalent as it was in the past. There's more home runs and more strikeouts these days.
Well, you know, that's the way they're raised now. Watching TV, pitchers want to strike everybody out, and hitters all want to hit home runs and or on the long ball. And if you're going to have a good team, you have to know what kind of hitter you are. Not everybody's going to be a power hitter. Not everybody's going to be a 300 hitter. But you have to really figure out what kind of hitter am I, and how am I going to stay in the big leagues.
Tigers on top 2-0. A chance to chat with Al Kaline here in Lakeland today. The Tigers starting to wind down camp, and this is the time of the year. Al, can you start to feel it with the veteran players now? It's time to get things rolling, where the younger guys want to still continue to get their at-bats and show what they can do.
Well, you know, it's hard to tell on the veteran guys, because particularly the ones that we have, you know, the Kinslers and the guys like that, they're baseball players. They come out here, and they don't want to embarrass themselves, and they want to give you an honest effort every time they put the uniform on. But no, it's just another opinion that the guys that went to the World Baseball Classic, if they can get the intensity back, the concentration back that they have to start the season, and I'm sure they will. You know, Cabrera, the very best. You know, he doesn't want to put the uniform on and embarrass himself, and he won't do that.
You know, Al, you're down here in spring training for the entire 6 weeks that most guys are here. And do guys come up to you and ask you for your opinion on just certain parts of the game, or do you just go up and kind of offer, you know, your opinions to some guys when you see guys doing some things that you might be able to add to and helping them out?
Well, you know, I guess maybe I should do more of that, but every time I get into spring training, particularly with the outfielders, I always tell every one of them that, hey, if there's any way I can help you, I'm not a type of guy that says, this is the way you ought to do it, this is the way you ought to do it. I don't want to sound like an old guy saying, this is the way we did it back in the old days. But, you know, yeah, you know, some of the guys come up to me and you know, and I'm willing to give my opinion, but we have great coaches. We have great outfield coaches, and hitting coaches are great. And when I have an opinion, I'll go to them first, because I don't want to say something different the day they may be telling the players. So I go to them first with my opinion, and they say, well, you know, they'll tell me, well, you go talk to them yourself, and I'll do that.
You know, one of the great turnarounds last year was Justin Upton late in the season, Al. The last month and a half was just unbelievable. And you guess I hope that it's going to even out this year. But what did you see from Justin the last month of the season that we didn't see the first 2 or 3?
Well, Justin is such a great competitor. You know, he's one of the kind of guys, and I hate to use that word again, he doesn't want to embarrass himself. Every time he goes out on the mound, he wants to be competitive, and he wants to do a good job. And but you know, he just now learning how to pitch. And I mean, the last few years, he's not that 97, 98, 99 mile an hour pitcher on every pitch. Now he's throwing 4 or 5 pitches, and he can throw them over the plate basically anytime he wants to.
Sac fly by McGrew drives in the first run of the ball game now for the Toronto Blue Jays. 2 outs. That'll bring up Elmore.
The other thing about Verlander, he's really become a leader as far as the pitching staff is concerned. He's really talking to the young guys all the time, and he has a couple of the young Boyd that sits right next to him in the locker room, and they're chatting all the time about different things. So, you know, he's willing to give his opinion, and it seems to be working.
Well, Boyd's been outstanding. Norris has had a really good spring. Anibal Sanchez out of nowhere has pitched very well. Tigers really have 6 starters right now.
You know what? This is a great position to be in for the Detroit, because, you know, sooner or later somebody's going to give a sore arm's going to be a little iffy, and you know, Boyd has pitched really well, and Sanchez has been unbelievable the last 3 outings. He has been what Beebe has done, pitching coach Beebe has done to him. He has set him up to, I'm sure a lot of teams are looking at him right now.
What, 14 scoreless innings in his last 3 outings.
Yeah, you definitely can't ignore that. And of course, it seems like the bullpen, though, is what's talked about every single season with this team.
Yeah, it's the same situation. You know, we have some good arms down there, but are they ready to compete in the major league level? And the Rodriguez, of course, hopefully he's back where he's always been, very competitive and getting guys out. But again, the bullpen is very important, but we have some good arms down there.
Jake Elmore, the batter, here with 2 outs. The Tigers on top 2-1 here over the Toronto Blue Jays in Lakeland. That ball hit in the air towards center field. Jacoby Jones under it to end the inning. Al, always a pleasure. Great to see you at the ballpark. Thanks for stopping in today.
Thank you, Mario. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
The great Al Kaline. We're in Lakeland where it's 2-1 Tigers. Tigers have the lead 2-1 as we go to the bottom of the fourth inning. And don't miss Kids Opening Day, Sunday, April 9th. The Tigers taking on the Boston Red Sox at Comerica. 1:10 start. All kids 14 and under receive a 2017 Tigers baseball card set. Visit Tigers.com or call 866-66-TIGER for more information. It's going to be a pretty good first week of the season. Tigers open up in Chicago. They come home to take on the Boston Red Sox.
Bring your pocketbook. You're going to have a couple extra days in Chicago.
That's right.
Beginning the season, we got a day off.
I'm going to have to cut up the credit cards before
bring
we go.
Bring your pocketbook.
There's a day off in Chicago, right?
I know.
Yeah. Good luck on that. Here's Justin Upton to lead things off. It'll be Upton, then Moya, then Avila facing Casey Lawrence. Hit hard right to the third baseman and right through the third baseman, Gunnar Heights.
Ooh, get the married men off the infield. Justin Upton, the second half of the season, hit the ball so hard. I mean, the numbers that he was putting up were just absolutely scary. And he gets himself a hanging breaking ball here from Lawrence and about undresses the third baseman, Heights. I mean, it's a hanging breaking ball. If he gets underneath it, it's a home run, but he got on top of it and whistled it right down toward third base. If Jay Up can get off to a good start, a good start. He didn't have to be what he did the second half of the year, but just close to what he did the second half of the year. I mean, this team's going to get off to a spectacular start.
Steven Moya had a base hit in his first at bat.
Dude, Moya was taking batting practice today, all left-handed. He swings the bat left-handed. He got in the batting cage after that. In his final two swings, he took right-handed dude. He hit ball 2 lasers out of the ballpark.
Really?
Out of the ballpark. And Miggy looked at him and said, dude, are you serious?
Wow.
You know, when you got Miggy saying that, you know something's up.
Runner goes. Moya swings and misses. Throw down to second is not in time. It'll be a stolen base for Upton.
I don't know if that was a hit and run or not, but obviously Moya swung and Jay Up gets a pretty good jump. We'll see if he looks in after 2 or 3 steps. He does take a peek in. Nope, straight steal more than likely. Kirk Gibson's got to be happy about that, right?
Absolutely. Gibby been working with the base runners.
Saw Gibby running around today in his uniform.
0-2 on Moya.
What do you got on Moya, man? He's tough.
Yeah.
He's tough, Mario. He's 25 years
really
old,
is.
man. Guys that are 6'7", man, and 250, but this kind of power, man, these guys aren't falling off trees, man.
No, but you bring up the great point. He said he's 25 years old now, so he's been a prospect for a couple of years, and there comes a time where I think an organization has to make a decision on a guy whether or not they feel he can play in the big leagues.
Well, that decision time is coming with Moya here the next week.
Moya last year 20 home runs in Toledo. That's in the air toward left, and that'll chase him all the way back to the warning track. Carrera hauls it in, and Moya is out.
Moya said he did not play winter ball this year because he wanted to dedicate the offseason to getting in shape, and he was able to, you know, do some agility work like many big leaguers do in the offseason, and he felt like coming into spring training he was in the best shape of his life, and he looked good. Unfortunately, he's had those back spasms that caused him not to play for about a week.
Well, when you get injuries, especially early in camp, and Tyler Collins knows all about that with the lat problem, it sometimes can derail your spring training, and especially for a guy like Moya trying to make an impression. Here's Alex Avila. Lawrence with a pickoff move. Tag. Got him.
Ooh, what a tag there by Petit.
Nicely executed by Lawrence and Petit.
And nice job. Nice little spin move. Justin Upton tries to get that right hand in there, and it looked like Petit got the right hand right before it got in there. Not much of an argument there from Justin.
So they're empty now, and with the bases empty, they will employ the shift against Avila. Alex tried to bunt a couple of times in his last at bat for a base hit. He ended up bunting the ball back to the mound. And he's going to try again. He jabs it foul down the third base line.
I guess that's what he's working on this afternoon.
This is like being back in the minor league fields, back behind the right field wall here at Tiger Town. Just go out there, get your at bats, and work on something.
You know, to be honest with you, I really have no problem with it because you could bunt all day long in practice or off the machine. But if this is something that Alex is going to do during the regular season, why not try to do it right now against live pitching?
Avila again showing bunt. All right, now when you're trying to teach someone to bunt, whether it's a little leaguer or a big leaguer, what are some of the mechanics and some of the basics that you need to be successful to do?
Well, you have to be on the balls of your feet. First and foremost, you have to have a little bit of give in your knees, bend ever so slightly. You get the bat to the top of the strike zone, so when you do see the ball at the top of the strike zone, you don't bunt balls that are high. You want the ball to be down in the strike zone so that you can get it down, and it's just playing catch with the baseball.
Lawrence off the mound to make the play, and Avila is out. That'll end the inning. No runs, a base hit, nobody left. 4 in the books here in Lakeland. Tigers baseball on Fox Sports Detroit is brought to you by Bell Tire. For tires and auto service, everybody needs a Bell Tire guy. And by the Michigan Office of Highway Safety Planning. Drive silver or get pulled over. There's your buddy, Rod.
Where is he? Oh,
Gator.
Yeah.
I'm here to tell you, Tigers fans, that anytime Rod Allen is walking down the street here in Lakeland and there's a body of water, any kind of body of water, your head is on a swivel looking for a gator.
I'm not even walking close to the water. Not even getting close to it. You know what's there. You know what's there.
But
you know that
you walk by a puddle and you're looking for a gator.
You know they are there.
Gunnar Hyde leads it off for the Blue Jays. It'll be Hyde, Davis, and Carrera due up here against Jordan Zimmerman. Tigers lead it 2-1. Hyde looks at a ball outside. Well, we were talking earlier about Anthony Gose being sent down, and I know that I should say Brad Ausmus also said before the game today that Gose is going to go down and perhaps throw some bullpens. He has such a good arm that maybe pitching is in his future.
Well, I heard Brad say that as much, and he said that Anthony Gose actually approached them about the idea. I mean, when Gose was in high school, he pitched and he threw 95 to 97 miles an hour. So if he's still got some of that in his arm, especially the fact that he's not having the kind of confidence with the bat these days, they could very easily find themselves a nice arm.
Hey, Keith, you were down there and you heard that entire conversation. Were you surprised at all to hear that that might be in the future of Anthony Gose? We'll check in with John in a minute. Here's the pitch, and it's drilled to center field on a line straight at Jacoby Jones. And one gone. John, you were down there as well when Brad talked about Anthony Gose perhaps going down to pitch a little bit. Was that surprising at all to you?
Yeah, I think all of us would have said, wait, what? Really? Well, I mean, Brad made the case that, yeah, in his past, he has been a pitcher with a very live arm. And Brad likened the situation to that of Sean Doolittle, who is a pitcher for the Oakland A's these days, but came up and was drafted as a first baseman outfielder in spite of the fact that he had pitched in his high school and college background. And Doolittle has worked his way into being a very fine, serviceable major league pitcher. And perhaps Anthony Gose is in a position where he might be able to do the same thing if he's not going to make a team as an everyday outfielder or even a fourth outfielder.
Wasn't Kenley Jansen a catcher as well?
Yeah,
Dodgers?
right.
Yep. Troy Percival was a catcher when he was coming up in the minor leagues.
They all played somewhere else,
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. That's popped up.
Uh-oh, that's Son.
Middle of the infield, Iglesias, boy, he's battling it. 2 gone. But, Rod, when you think about making that transition, and you know, let's state the facts here. He's going down to play outfield. He's just going to throw some bullpens on the side and see how it works out. There's a lot of mechanical adjustment to pitching in the big leagues or professionally, period. It's going to be difficult for him to do that, I would think.
There's no question it will be difficult for him to do, but the Tigers have a wonderful staff down there. They've got some outstanding pitching coordinators. They've got a minor league staff of pitching and former players, some guys that can really help him. And if his arm holds up and there's no pain as far as when he starts to throw, because it's not a natural thing to do, to jerk your arm over your body 100 times a game. That's just not a natural thing to do with your arm. If he could get through the soreness, you never know what can happen. It's not going to be easy, but it could be done.
Ezekiel Carrera with a half-hearted swing.
Zimmerman has looked very good today. He's given up the 1 run. He's given up a couple of hits, but he has done a nice job. 70 pitches, 49 strikes, 21 balls.
One and two. Well, the Tigers rotation still has to be decided in terms of that 5 spot of the rotation, whether it's Sanchez or Boyd. But at the top, you've got Zimmerman, and you've got Verlander and Fulmer, and Zim trying to finish up strong here in spring camp. And so far today has, I think, done just that. He's given up just the 1 run.
I think Boyd is probably the number 5 starter for me as we speak. Even though Sanchez has been outstanding in his last 3 outings, Boyd has been tremendous all year long. And it's a nice problem to have, as Mr. Kaline told us, the fact that more than likely Brad has 6 starters. One guy's going to have to start in the bullpen, and that might just be Sanchez, who is the long man in the bullpen, and Boyd gets the ball the opening week of the season.
You know, I just find it fascinating that you can make an adjustment, a mechanical adjustment like Sanchez did, and all of a sudden he rips off all of these scoreless innings. It really is amazing.
Oh, when you look at Justin, he's a lock. Norris is a lock. You look at Jordan Zimmerman, of course. Michael Fulmer is going to be the opening day starter. But now you have Matt Boyd, Anibal Sanchez. Matt Boyd, for me, is probably in the rotation. Sanchez, more than likely, he starts the season in the bullpen.
It's pulled down the right field line, foul.
Here's what these guys have done this spring. Keep in mind that in the last 3, Sanchez has been stellar. 14 innings, a couple of hits, no runs, 16 strikeouts. But his first few outings weren't very good at all until the arm adjustment. Boyd has been outstanding all spring. He hasn't walked a batter all spring training, 15 innings, and he's done very nice work. And we had him on our air on Friday, and he looked about as good as any starter we've seen all spring, with the exception of Verlander.
What if Sanchez goes out and throws 6 no-hit innings again in his next start?
For me, Sanchez is still the guy that starts.
Still the guy
that starts the season in the bullpen. Just for me. I mean, I don't have inside information at all. But I just think that Boyd has pitched so well during the course of spring training that he's earned it. Another fact, too, that Boyd does have an option. True. But I would be shocked if they sent Boyd down to minor leagues if Sanchez was the 5th starter and just kept Boyd on a regular work program, if you know what I mean, making starts in the minor leagues. What do you think?
I would agree with you. I think that Sanchez has made it interesting. He's made it more of a conversation as Carrera goes down swinging. But the next week will give us the answer. Another strikeout for Zim. That's his 4th of the game. Bottom of the 5th inning here in Lakeland. 2-1 Tigers over the Jays. And Detroit Tigers spring training baseball is always live with the MLB.com at Bat mobile app. Stay connected all spring long with radio broadcast, video highlights, stats, news, and more. Download MLB.com at Bat today, your #1 app for live baseball. Well, here we go. The Tigers coming up here in the bottom of the 5th. They've got the bottom of the order. Jacoby Jones will lead things off. Facing Casey Lawrence, who is still out there for the Blue Jays. He continues to impress for Toronto. And Jacoby swings and misses. One thing, Rod, the Blue Jays have as a strength is their starting rotation. Now, beyond the starting 5, they're a little bit thin, but they've got some guys that have had some pretty good big league seasons in their rotation.
We were talking about that a little earlier today, and the fact that everybody talks about their offense, but not many people talk about their pitching staff, which led the American League in ERA last year. I mean, Marco Estrada is going to be their opening day starter, followed by Jay Happ. Then they've got Marcus Stroman. They've got Francisco Liriano. Then the kid they got pitching 5th in the rotation, Aaron Sanchez, all he did last year was lead the American League in ERA.
Yeah, and they're bringing him along slowly this spring, but they've got some arms, and of course they've got the youngster closing games, Roberto Osuna. So they can pitch it. Jones waiting on a 1-2. And down he goes.
That sink piece that Lawrence has been featuring to most of these right-handers. It's been tying guys up. It looks like it's right down the middle if you're Jacoby Jones. And as you start your swing, that ball just kind of inches its way about a foot on the inner third of home plate, and it makes it nearly impossible for you to put it in play. That's a fabulous pitch for Lawrence.
Here's Iglesias.
Go, Iggy.
One thing I'd like to see Iglesias do a little bit more this year is bunt for a base hit on occasion. I mean, he's got the kind of speed that you would think that if he did bunt down the third baseline, because they usually give it to him because he doesn't do it very often, he can get himself 5, 6, 7, 8 more hits per season.
Yeah, I would agree with that definitely. Iggy last year batted .255 in that area, mid-250s, and you know, he's hit 300 in the big leagues.
He gets lots of infield hits. I mean, the fact that he gets down the line rather quickly. You brought this up on Friday. He's tough to strike out. He was the toughest to strike out in the American League a season ago.
Well, the Tigers all of a sudden in pretty good shape at the shortstop position. They got Iglesias, Dixon Machado's had a really good camp. Brendan Ryan's even played pretty well for the Tigers. There's a chopper, third base side, gobbled up there by Height. 2 gone.
The second baseman.
Now Kinsler.
Andrew Romine also can play some shortstop.
Romine,
so
right?
you brought up Romine, you brought up Ryan, you brought up Machado, Iglesias. They have themselves 4 guys in camp that could handle the shortstop position.
Kinsler in the ball game is 0 for 2, strikeout and flyout. Back in the Tigers lineup after coming back from the WBC.
Ian Kinsler was the first player that Jim Leyland approached about playing in the World Baseball Classic toward the tail end of last season. And it didn't take Ian Kinsler long to say, you know what, I'm all in, Mr. Leyland. And those are the kind of guys that Jim wanted. He wanted guys like Ian Kinsler, guys that when you asked, they said, okay, I'm in. Not guys that, okay, I got to do it this way. I got to make sure I got this going. He didn't want any of those guys. He wanted the guys to buy in, guys like Kinsler, guys like Adam Jones. And those guys did that, and that's one of the reasons why they won it.
Yeah, you can make the argument that is the reason why they won it. Sawed him off in a slow roller towards short, Petite. And it's going to be a 1-2-3 for Lawrence.
Oh, dear, who's right?
Tigers baseball today from Lakeland, presented by Bell Tires. The telecast is presented by the authority of the Detroit Tigers and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the Detroit Tigers. John Keating and Tyler Collins, and they are standing by right now outside the Tigers clubhouse.
All right, well, you're still early in your big league existence. How much at this point, going into the last week, are you ready to say, let's get the season going?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I feel like sometimes the only reason we're here is so that the pitchers can stretch their arms out. So, yeah, I'm tired of being there. They're batting practice dummies and stuff, so it's time to go play.
So you're here to suggest that pitchers pretty much control every aspect of what you guys do, the rest of you players?
Nah. Nah.
How has this spring been different for you?
These facilities, for one. You know, we were just talking about it. It's so comfortable. You know, you don't know if you're a week into spring or if you're 6 weeks in, because you can function around this place now, and it's majestic almost.
But you're one of the outfielders in the mix, certainly, and with J.D. being out for 3 weeks to a month, how does that impact you? What was your reaction when you heard he was going to be out for a while?
I mean, that's unfortunate to lose someone like J.D., but I feel like this club's definitely capable of holding their own and still winning games. Mm-hmm.
What have you done to prepare yourself for taking that next step where you're an everyday outfielder for this team?
I would say it starts mentally. You know, I heard Nick say it perfectly the other day. He fell in love with the process. And it's a lot of fun getting ready for games now and preparing the right way.
The guys were talking about that sometimes you don't know what you don't know when you're a young player, and then you figure it out. And is that process sort of becoming you know, happenstance, an everyday occurrence for you, and that's when all the good stuff happens?
Right, you know, and then it's up there for every single player to figure out who they are as a player, and I've had a lot of guys help me out, and I think I'm ready to become Tyler Collins, for sure.
The Cleveland Indians can't beat this team as often as they beat this team last year, right?
Yeah, that was last year. I don't even know what you're talking about.
There you go. Mario, Rod?
I gotta love it.
Some gems from Tyler Collins.
You gotta love it. He don't even know he's got amnesia.
Well, you got to have amnesia after what happened last year with the Cleveland Indians. Thanks, Geets. It's you know, it's one of those things that when really you look at this coming season, Rod, and even if you play 500 against the Tribe, it's going to be much different.
Well, the Tribe, they're already battling some injuries. I mean, they got Kipnis is going to start the season on the disabled list. I mean, I know Michael Brantley is playing in spring training, but he just started playing a couple of days ago, so they don't quite know what they're going to get out of Michael Brantley, although they got to the World Series last year without him. But now they've got some question marks as well, and it's going to be tough for any team to go out and repeat, and a team to play as well as the Cleveland Indians played last year. They got a great manager. They got a great bullpen. They got good rotation. They got good players. But the Tigers also have a really good team.
Yeah, the length of the Major League schedule has a way of consuming you and has a way of shaping playoff pushes for teams that may suffer injuries. And I will say this, though, with all the injuries the Indians had to their rotation,
right,
last half of last year, man, Terry Francona, terrific job.
Amazing job. He's one of the best managers in baseball. And this just in, the Kansas City Royals are not going to be as poor as a lot of people think they're going to be. They still have some really good everyday players in Hosmer and Kane and Gordon and the shortstop. And some of those young kids like Cuthbert and those kids were really coming last year.
Yeah, I would agree.
Moustakas is back.
So the Central should be interesting once again this year. Of course, the Tigers relatively the same club as last year, too, hopefully with better health. Petit is just giving Zimmerman fits here.
Well, he might as well elevate a fastball here, see if he can get Petit to swing through it.
I mean, we had a whole John Keating interview in this at bat here, and he's still going. Morales and Ullman to follow here in the sixth. Tigers lead by a run, 2-1. Toward first base, foul ground. Navarro. Will they have room? Back in the seats.
Read it out. You got it.
Well, Tyler Collins touched on this new facility here, and I know that we've highlighted it throughout the course of our telecast, but it is really now on par with any facility in baseball, and this has really become a stop on the Central Florida circuit, to be sure.
Well, when you think about it, I mean, the Tigers and the organization, they invest so much into these players that you have to make sure they're comfortable. They've got the best facilities. They're feeding guys a whole lot better these days. I mean, there's so much goes into making sure that you're protecting these investments and making sure you're putting these guys in the best possible situation to have success on a nightly basis.
That has popped up. And Avila appears to have room for this one. Finally, they retired Gregorio Petit.
Way to stay alive. Way to stay alive.
One away here in the 6th.
It's going to be it for Jordan Zimmerman. And Brad Austin is taking the long, slow stroll out to the mound.
He usually does this when he's trying to buy some time. But his reliever, I'm sure, ready to go.
Nice job today by Jordan Zimmerman. Yeah. Thoroughly impressed.
Gotta like it. So Zim will depart, giving up just 1 run in this game and only 2 hits. So we'll have a wall-side windows pitching change here in Lakeland. Jordan Zimmerman will receive a nice round of applause as he departs.
The new smoke.
Tigers on top 2-1 as we play here in the 6th inning. To the bullpen go the Tigers, and here is Alex Wilson.
Alex Wilson not having a great spring as far as the numbers are concerned, but you really don't worry about Alex Wilson. The last couple of years he's been outstanding in that Tigers bullpen, and he will be in that bullpen on April 3rd when the Tigers get to Chicago.
And he will face Kendrys Morales with 1 out.
You could do a lot of things with Alex Wilson, and Brad has used him a variety of different ways the last couple of years. He's used him very late in games. He's used him early in games. He's used him also a lot in multiple inning situations, and he's done very nice in those opportunities.
High fly ball into shallow right field. Castellanos over from his third base position hauls it in. 2 gone. I talked to Alex about that last year, and I said, how do you prepare, you know, not knowing really whether you're going to come in early in the game or late in the game? And he said, well, I usually have a pretty good, you know, feel for where I'm going to pitch in a ball game. But he said, you've got to sometimes ramp it up a little bit early. When you know you could come in the 5th, you could come into the 8th. And I don't know that we have specific roles this year, Rod. Do you think, as far as the bullpen is concerned, you got Frankie at the back, but then who knows now with the.
Well, I think you have somewhat of an idea who's going to pitch late in games. More than likely, it's going to be Justin Wilson at the back end, along with Rondon at the back end of the game, and you'll see Alex Wilson back there on occasion. So those are the guys for the most part that will get the ball late in games, in my opinion.
And again, if you missed the announcement earlier, Mark Lowe was released by the Tigers today. Ullman, the batter here with 2 outs.
I watched Alex Wilson pitch in a minor league game on Thursday. The Tigers had a night game in Orlando that evening, and he pitched in a game in the backfields over there. Ball was coming out of his hand nice. He was pitching against the minor league talent of the Braves, but you know, guys are working on things when they're pitching on that backfield.
Wilson last year began the season on the disabled list, had some shoulder soreness.
Established career highs last year with 4 wins, appearances as well, innings pitched. He had a good year. Ooh.
Fortunately, that was off the end of the bat, it appears, because it sounded bad. But Upton will get there to retire the side. It's going to be a 1-2-3 inning. We'll go to the bottom of the 6th in Lakeland. Have the lead here this afternoon. 2-1 is our score as we go to the bottom of the 6th inning, and it's the Steel of Spring Sweepstakes, where you can win an Enduro Series lawn tractor. Enter online at foxsportsdetroit.com now, and I mean now, for your chance to win. Pretty good looking tractor right there. Got a new pitcher now for the Toronto Blue Jays. Lawrence is out of the game. Wall side windows pitching change. Dominic Leone.
Lawrence did nice work. He had a real good sinker. Occasionally he threw some good breaking balls. Now Leone in. He's a 3.86 ERA. 9 1/3 innings pitched so far this year, and he has 13 strikeouts.
So Leone will go to work.
Castellanos has had an outstanding spring, and one of the things we were talking about regarding Nick is the fact that he has kind of changed his approach this year. Look how he's bouncing the bat up above the head. The hands stay back. He's able to recognize pitches, which means he's not leaving the strike zone. And he got a ball to hit two-seam fastball inside earlier if you missed it, and he hit the ball about 450 feet from home plate with a little bit of a bat flip. Second time up, same exact thing. You see where the bat is? This time he flips the ball down the right field line for a double, and he scored both of the Tigers' runs today. So he looks good to me, Mario.
He looks really good, and certainly the numbers indicate that. Castellanos homer and a double, and now has 4 home runs on the spring and 14 RBIs.
For those of you that weren't with us the last time Castellanos came up, I told you he's kind of taking a page out of Manny Ramirez's book, the way he kind of holds his hands up above the head and just kind of bounces the hands left and right and keeps those hands in the same position, and he keeps them back. It's key for him right now.
Let's check in now with John Keating, standing by with today's starter, Jordan Zimmerman.
I would think you got to be delighted with your start here today.
Yeah, it was good. I needed something like this, and you know, I finally felt in rhythm and had 4 pitches working today, and it was one of those days where it's fun to be out there.
What has that search been like to find the rhythm that you had here today?
Yeah, I've been a little off all spring and trying to find my timing and stuff, and you know, it all came together today, and I felt comfortable. You know, just a few little things to work on yet, but you know, I'm right where I need to be. It's
got to be tough to put aside the injury and the effects of the injury, and at the same time find that rhythm that you had last April.
Yeah, I mean, the injuries happen, and you know, something that's in the past for me, and you know, I'm feeling great right now, and you know, just to I basically took a half a year, 3/4 of a year off last year, and now coming back in spring and just trying to find the timing a little bit. And it took me a little longer than normal, but I'm getting really close.
You said it hadn't been the spring that you hoped to have. How much pressure, is there pressure attached to the start here today, knowing that we can see the start of the Major League season?
Yeah, I don't think there's any pressure. I've been doing this long enough that I know that you're going to have bumps in the road and you're not going to feel great every time out, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. And after having a couple terrible starts, it's good to be out there and go 5.
Were you worried?
No, not at all. I felt great, and those two bad starts I have, I just had some bad luck. A couple broken bat bloopers and balls flying in the hole, and today was one of those days where luck was on my side.
How anxious are you to pitch in games that truly count?
Oh, I can't wait. It's a whole different ball game when you get under the lights and you got the adrenaline flowing, and it's fun coming to spring and seeing all the guys, but it's definitely good to leave too.
Last question, how good can this team be? The starters that you have that we didn't have at the start of last season, how much difference can you feel?
Yeah, as long as we stay healthy, like I've been saying all along, health is the name of the game, and obviously having JD go down hurts a little bit, but we're at pretty much full strength, and I see a big season ahead.
Zim, thanks. Well done today.
Thank you.
Jordan Zimmerman, the starter who did outstanding in his start against the Blue Jays today. Mario, Rod?
Rod, Jordan brings up a pretty good point to that. He missed about half the season last year, so it's going to take a little bit of a while to get going here this year.
Yeah, I was encouraged by what I watched him do today. The ball was coming out of his hand nicely. The fastball was firm. It went anywhere from 92 to 94. He threw tons of first pitch strikes. The Blue Jays don't have their everyday lineup here, but that didn't matter to me. The fact the ball was coming out of his hand as well as it was today was a welcome sight for Brad Ausmus, Rich Doobie, and the entire Tigers fan base.
Bouncing ball into the second baseman. They'll go to second for 1, and there is a double play. So Navarro hits into the 4-6-3. 2 gone.
But if he is throwing the ball as well as he threw here today, it's going to be another really good season for Jordan Zimmerman. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, good sign to be sure. Here's Victor Martinez.
Tigers starting rotation is in pretty good shape with Verlander, Zimmerman, Fulmer, Norris, Boyd, and Anibal Sanchez.
Trying to think of the other rotations in the Central Division and how it would rank. I know that the Indians have really 4 solid starters in their rotation. They're awfully good, but I think that when you compare them to Cleveland, KC, Minnesota, and Chicago, it may be the best in division, if not maybe slightly behind Cleveland.
It's up there. There's no doubt about that. It's right up there.
Victor is 0 for 2, couple of ground balls. They are shifting Martinez to the right side.
I thought Mr. Tiger, Al Kaline, brought up a magnificent point when he was talking about the guys that played in the WBC. Can they continue to ratchet up while they're back down here in spring training the way they did while they were playing in the World Baseball Classic?
That is yet to be determined. We will see. Tigers out in the 6th. We go to the 7th. 2-1 as we go to the 7th inning. Here's our Comerica Bank game summary. Couple of names that stick out today, Rod. Zimmerman, Castellanos.
Yes, Castellanos has been getting it done all spring long, but I was very encouraged the way the ball was coming out of Jordan Zimmerman's hand today. He looks like he's ready for opening day. Fastball was firm. It was crisp. Good location. He had a nice outing today.
Meanwhile, the Tigers have gone to the bullpen now. Bruce Rondon will check in, and Daryl Siciliani will stand in. It is a wall side windows pitching change for Mr. Rondon.
8.31 ERA this spring. He spent some time playing in the World Baseball Classic as well, so he hasn't been here all spring. But last year down the stretch, Bruce Rondon was pitching some pretty good baseball. For me, Mario, he might be the most valuable member of the bullpen. I know I shouldn't say that, but from all the guys down there, he's the one guy that has the stuff to just go take it to that next level and dominate. He really has the stuff to do so.
Well, he's got the ability to have the biggest impact. I think you're right with his raw physical skills. And when you consider now the Tigers, and we were talking about this, what they're going to do at the back end of the bullpen, he would be an awfully nice piece if he could slot into one of those innings.
I mean, last year, Bruce Rondon, 5-2 in the big leagues with an ERA under 3. And he struck out more batters than innings pitched. So he's got that fastball that will reach triple digits. He's got a slider and a changeup. And a nice job there by Siciliani and laying off on that fastball upstairs in the mid-90s.
Strikeout, ground out for Siciliani in this game. Fouled away. Well, Rondon coming into the game today, which leads us to talk about the bullpen. Your thoughts on Joe Jimenez being sent down as well today?
Well, the Tigers are going to have him up in the big leagues before it's all said and done. He pitched so well last year in Double-A. He also pitched in Triple-A. Jimenez also pitched in the World Baseball Classic for Puerto Rico. It won't be long before Jimenez pitches his way and forces his way onto the Major League roster.
Got him, strike 3. What a pitch.
Nice little off-speed pitch there by Rondon after a number of mid-90s fastballs. He comes back and pulls the string on a real nice slide piece. Brad also said that, you want guys to play in the World Baseball Classic because you want guys to have that experience, especially a young guy like Joe Jimenez, because it will help him as he moves into his major league career. But it also can hurt you if you're a guy trying to make a team and you're not pitching as much while you're pitching in the World Baseball Classic as you would pitch if you were with your regular squad.
That ball belted deep to left center field and to the track wall and berm. It's gone.
McBroom.
Ooh, McBroom swept that one out of the ballpark. It's a solo shot.
Nice.
Killed it. That'll tie the ball game up.
Talked about the fact that so many guys are elevating the fastball these days, and this is the reason why. This ball is down at the bottom of the strike zone. It's a mid-90s fastball, but most guys are just trying to lift their swings these days. Guys have classic uppercut swings. If you elevate that fastball maybe 2 to 3 inches a little bit higher, McBroom is not able to hit that ball out of the ballpark.
Jake Elmore looks at a ball up and in. That is the 3rd home run of the spring for McBroom, who has a couple of RBIs today. Elmore is 0 for 1 with the walk. Rondon last year was recalled from Toledo in June, so about halfway through the season. He had a stretch from, I don't know, I think it was July through the month of September where he was as good as we have seen, Bruce. At dark slow.
It got to the point where Brad was using him in closing situations when Francisco was not available. And he was the main guy in the 8th inning getting the ball to Francisco Rodriguez for a month or 2 last year.
Go,
3 balls, 1 strike. Jake Elmore.
Well, if you're Jake Elmore, you know you're going to get a fastball. It's going to be right down the middle. It's going to be about 95 miles an hour. What can he do with it?
Bangs it off his foot. That's about it. Full count on 3-2. Rondon has been a big strikeout pitcher, really, whether it's the minor leagues or the big leagues. In 3 major league seasons, he's had about 10 strikeouts per 9.
It wouldn't be all bad to come back with another breaking ball here. I mean, just kind of work on something. He's going to go fastball, but when you're in spring training, you know you're going to make the team. You can work on different things.
So 1-out walk.
The third baseman, Gunnar Height.
That'll bring him Gunnar Height. Zimmerman started this game, was relieved in the 6th inning by Wilson. Alex got a couple of outs, and now Rondon here in the 7th. Another spectacular day here. The Tigers have only 1 game remaining at home in spring training. And we'll have that telecast for you coming up on Wednesday against the Phillies. Ball 1 to Gunnar Height. Played his college ball at the College of Charleston, 13th round pick of the Jays. A little bit of power in the minors last year, 9 home runs. But Rondon, and we've said this over and over and over, if he can develop those secondary pitches and find consistency with them, I'm with you. I mean, he's got lights out stuff.
Especially in fastball counts. I mean, when he gets himself in a situation where he's 2 balls and 1 strike, most of the time he does throw a fastball because he's got a big arm. But if he could throw some breaking balls and changeups in those positions, he would get himself a lot easier outs. He'd get some weak ground balls. He'd get weaker contact. It's a nice job of paying some attention to Lopes over there, the pinch runner for Broom in a 2-2 game. He might be on the move here if Rondon forgets about him. Got a huge lead.
Fouled away. Tigers, after a slow start this spring, came into this one 12-16, and there's a time, Rod, where people are starting to freak out a little bit because the Tigers really, not only were they not playing good baseball, but the games were lopsided. They were long. They just didn't look good. But now as we get deeper into spring camp, it's starting to look more like the team they expected.
Yeah, they had about an 8 or 9 game stretch where they were giving up about 8 runs a game, and Brad Ausmus was not happy about it. As a matter of fact, he said, "I'm tired of watching it." Ooh, nice pitch. But it's good to see the team starting to round itself into shape as the roster starts to sort itself out. Nice arm speed on this off-speed pitch thrown by Rondon, and that's what can happen, Mario. When you're up there at a hitter and a guy throws 100 miles an hour, you constantly have to respect that pitch. You have to respect that fastball and that velocity. And if you're a pitcher like Rondon and you can throw a breaking ball and you can have the same arm speed as the fastball, you're going to see a lot of swings like we just witnessed there from Height.
Runner goes. Throw down to second is not in time. Stolen base for Lopes.
Well, Avila really had no chance to throw Lopes out. We talked about the fact that he had a huge lead over there, and if Rondon forgot about him, he would steal second base. He's got a huge lead. He throws the ball home. It's not very quick. He has a high leg kick, and Lopes had about 10 steps underneath his belt before Alex Avila really even got the ball in his glove.
Here's the 1-0. 1-1 on Davis.
Looks like that's the pitch that Rondon might be working on here this afternoon. That real nice breaking ball.
Little chopper toward third. That'll go foul.
What do you think about the Chicago White Sox team? We're going to see Jose Quintana on the very first game of the year. He pitched in the WBC against the United States. in one game, and he pretty much shut them down for about 5 or 6 innings. And we know Quintana, he's a really good pitcher, but I guess the million-dollar question is, will he be with the White Sox on opening day? There are a lot of teams out there that want Jose Quintana.
Right back to the pitcher's mound, and Rondon will throw him out. Hold that thought, and we'll come back, talk about a little bit of the Central Division the Tigers will be facing this year. Ball game tied at 2 now as we go to the stretch. Tie ball game now as we go to the bottom of the 7th inning here at Lakeland. And by the way, here's the upcoming matchup presented by Wallside Windows. The Tigers' next and final home game here in Lakeland is coming up on Wednesday, and we will have the broadcast for you beginning at 1 o'clock. Tigers and the Fightin' Phils here at Publix Field at Joker Marchant Stadium coming up on Wednesday afternoon.
And that brings us to the Menards, and it's our big money encounter. And what more can you say about Nick Castellanos? He's been getting busy all spring training long. He homered his very first time up today. 12 extra base hits in spring training for Nicholas Castellanos.
Been putting on a show here in Lakeland this year, and Castellanos has done it again today with a couple of extra base hits. And the Tigers here in the bottom of the 7th will have Justin Upton to lead things off. Dominic Leone is still out there for the Blue Jays. Tigers got a walk against him, but hit into a double play in the 6th. Jay up in the ball game today, single, steal, fly ball. He's 1 for 2. You were talking right about the Chicago White Sox as we went to break, and will Quintana be there for opening day for them? Of course, Chris Sale is gone now, and really when you look at the rotation, it's not very formidable, to be honest with you. They do have Derek Holland. They've got Miguel Gonzalez and James Shields maybe on the downside of his career.
They're kind of retooling. I mean, obviously they traded away Adam Eaton to the Washington Nationals and got a boatload of prospects in return for him. They also traded Chris Sale to the Boston Red Sox, and they got a boatload of prospects in return for him as well. So they're retooling a little bit. They won't go as far as to say we're rebuilding. They don't want to say that to their fans, but they are definitely looking to the future by stockpiling a lot of talent, as most teams have done when they've started to rebuild.
Well, they do still have some power in that lineup with Abreu and, of course, Frazier at third base. But the young kid, Tim Anderson, they signed him to a deal, and they did well to really lock him up.
He was a nice-looking player, Anderson. I mean, the guy had some quick feet at the shortstop position. He had a rifle for an arm, and he had a lightning-quick bat.
First base side back out of play.
They still have Melky Cabrera. Melky Cabrera is a professional hitter. He's a switch hitter who will play left field. who will give you a quality at bat. So the White Sox will not be a pushover, but they will not be a team that really contends in the American League Central, in my opinion.
Go, Justin.
0-2 on Justin Upton. One ball and 2 strikes. Justin Upton this spring with 4 home runs. He's knocked in 11, and by and large it's been a solid spring for him.
Spent some time with him early in spring training in the batting tee, and he says everything is regarding his back hip when he loads up. He loads up on that backside, and he wants to stay on that backside as long as possible. It's not so much getting that front foot down as him relaxing comfortably with that right hip pushing down into the ground. He says that's the key to his swing.
Down he goes. Leon with his first strikeout.
Nice breaking ball there from Leon. And J-Up had the leg in the air, and then he just got it back down, and it just was fooled by the arm speed of Leon.
It's going to be it for Leon as the Jays will go to the bullpen. So he faces 4 batters. And Toronto will make a pitching change here in the 7th. So we'll step aside in a 2-2 ball game.
72nd birthday to Dan Janicki.
Jays go to the bullpen here in a wall-side windows pitching change. Chad Gerardo is the new lefty now for Toronto.
Gerardo's had a nice spring. I mean, he checks in with a 2.25 as far as the ERA is concerned. He's given up 6 hits. He's punched out 7. And he's only given up 3 earned runs. He's a left-hander that throws from a low sidearm arm slot, and this is the perfect situation for your left-hander. You've got a couple of lefties coming up here in Moya and also Alex Avila to get Gerardo the kind of work that he needs. If he makes a team, more than likely he's going to be a situational guy.
Yeah, Gerardo last year made 14 appearances with the Blue Jays at the big league level.
And DeMarlo Hale is the acting manager here today. John Gibbons must have stayed back with their team in Dunedin. They have a split squad today. That's why they don't have many of their everyday players in attendance. DeMarlo Hale has been the bench coach for John Gibbons the last couple of years. There's DeMarlo.
Hey, go for your last call, last call, last call.
Blue Jays last year had another really good season, making the postseason again for the 2nd consecutive year. Moya held up.
Last call, who's ready?
Blue Jays last year were 2nd in the American League East at 89 and 73.
I just heard the cat down there scream out, last call, who's ready?
He said it right into our microphones, too.
It's almost like he was talking to us, wasn't he?
Last call indeed. I don't think it's ever last call out there in Margaritaville out there in right field.
Oh, they're kicking it out there, man.
Here's the 2-2. Rolled foul. There it is.
Where'd they go? Oh, they went up top.
Yeah, they did, trying to find some shade.
Yeah, trying to find a little shade out there.
Well, you were talking about lefties for Toronto. How about the lefties for the Tigers? Of course, Justin Wilson will certainly be in the mix. Blaine Hardy has pitched well here in spring camp. And got Kyle Ryan. Chad Bell has had an opportunity. The chopper back up the middle. And big Stephen Moya is going to be out, 2 gone.
Well, we know Justin Wilson's a lock. And you know there's a lot of trust as far as Blaine Hardy's concerned. You know they really trust him as far as he throws tons of strikes. Ryan had a nice season last year. There are some options there for the Tigers as far as that second left-hander in the bullpen, whoever they decide it's going to be.
Here's Avila, and let's see if he's up there to bunt. Alex was working on his bunting in each of his first 2 at-bats without not a lot of success. And he is.
We'll have to take him on the backfield and work a little bit on them bunts. That much is for sure. We're going to take him on the backfield after the game.
0-1 on Avila. That's what the backfields are for. He spins away from that one up high. 1 ball, 1 strike. They play him to pull, therefore Avila trying to lay one down that third base line, and he does, but it's going to go right to the third baseman who had him played, Guerrero, to his left. And that is that. So the Tigers go 1-2-3 here in the 7th. Tigers baseball presented by Bell Tire. Bank, a part of Detroit and the community since 1849. Your Metro Detroit Chevy dealers. Visit ChevyDetroit.com. See why Chevy drives the Motor City. Wallside Windows. We can do that. We are the factory. And by Weingarts. Everything from lawn to snow. Back here in Lakeland on another gorgeous afternoon here in Central Florida. All tied at 2s. The Tigers and the Toronto Blue Jays, only 3 hits for the Jays today. 6 for the Tigers. New pitcher on now for Detroit, Mike Pelfrey.
And spring training this year, a lot of decisions for Mike. 2-3 with an ERA approaching 8, 13 2/3 innings. And one of the things they've been working on down here with Mike is trying to get him to throw more fastballs, 4-seam variety, up in the strike zone to see if he can get more swings and misses. A lot of contact the last couple of years against Pelfrey. Also, they'd like to see him mix in a lot more breaking balls.
Pelfrey in his first year with the Tigers last year was 4-10 with an ERA north of 5. And he really scuffled in the second half. His ERA was 7.40. Came to camp this year much slimmer, trimmer. Here's the 1-1. 2 balls and 1 strike. Been there, a strike called. Ian Parmley, the batter. His first at bat of the game, taking over for Carrera. Nubbed foul, first base side. Two and two on Parmley. Bouncing ball left side of the infield for Iglesias. Hustling down the line. Parmley just out by a step.
Yeah, he immediately beat that out.
Check in now with John Keating.
All right, I'm with Ian Kinsler. Have you decided ultimately where your gold medal goes?
No.
How cool was that to receive that award at playing at that level?
It was an intense tournament, and you know, the group of guys that we had, the way that we came together, it was a special 2 weeks, and you know, Jim Leland did an unbelievable job. It was just a lot of fun. I mean, it was like a baseball vacation, really.
How much did it match the expectations, if at all, that you had going into the tournament?
I really didn't have any. I knew that it, you know, obviously you put that jersey on, you have USA across your chest. It's going to be special, and it means a lot. But as far as expectations, you know, that was my first experience doing it, and you know, playing in front of the Dominican fans in Miami was ridiculous. I don't know if I've ever played a game that, you know, that loud and crazy from pitch one to the end of the game. So, you know, it was a great experience.
That had to be fun, just taking all that in, all that noise when you're playing in Miami.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I took it all in. It's too much.
Rod retold the story that Jim Leland had said when he asked you about being on Team USA. You said, I'm all in. Had you hoped that you were going to be invited?
Yeah, I thought, you know, crossed my mind. I thought about it. Jim came up to me pretty early in the summer and asked me, you know, if I wanted to be a part of the team, and there was no question. There's really nothing to think about. You know, it's something that I was looking forward to, and being offered was a no-brainer.
Jim told us in the celebration after you guys won the gold medal, he said, wait a minute, guys, I want to put in a call to the Russians to see if we can take them on next, right?
I guess. I never heard that one.
Didn't you hear that story? He shared that with us today. All right, let's fast forward to your team right now. And this is a weird spring for you, because you go from sort of the sleepy spring training, and all of a sudden you are playing in those Game 7s of World Series effectively, and now you have to sort of throttle it back and at the same time get ready. How unique is this experience for you?
It's unique, but I'm ready to go. I mean, these at-bats really aren't going to do anything for me. It's nice to see some pitches and you know, get into rhythm, stay in the rhythm, I guess. But, you know, come opening day, I'll be ready, and when the lights turn on, it's go time.
There was some expectation your team might be vastly different this spring. How delighted are the veterans who have come back to keep the band together and take another kick at this can?
Well, we have all the pieces in place, you know, to make a run at the Central and have a good summer, have a lot of fun this summer. So, you know, we're happy that everyone's back. We're happy that we got that opportunity to prove ourselves over again, and we can't wait for opening day.
Congrats on the gold medal. We'll see you in Chicago.
All right, thanks.
Ian Kinsler. Rod, Mario, back to you.
All right, John, thanks. And the words of Ian Kinsler, who, well, it had to be one of the best experiences of his career, I would imagine. Winning that championship for the WBC, or in the WBC for Team USA. And you can tell these veterans, Rod, are happy that the Tigers are coming back with another real legitimate shot this year.
Yeah, they feel like they've got some unfinished business. There's no question about that. They feel like they probably underachieved last year, even though there were some injuries that had something to do with their year. Of course, Castellanos missed some time. Zimmerman also missed some time. Victor wasn't quite 100%. We learned this spring training last year, dealing with a hernia situation. If they stay healthy, they're going to surprise some people this year.
Ooh, look out. Almonte fired one back into the seats. And
almost got legendary Lloyd.
Man. Lloyd okay?
Yeah, almost got him. And Kevin Rand, head athletic trainer, sitting behind Rich Doobie, the pitching coach. The bench coach, Gene Lamont, in the middle, and the skipper, Brad Osmus.
Pelfrey in search of the 1-2-3/8. Full count now, 3-2. Pelfrey takes over for Rondon, who threw in the 7th. Wilson in the 6th. Jordan Zimmerman started today, looked good. Here's the 3-2 offering. Fouled away. Well, Pelfrey also hoping to do as well as he can here down the stretch. We've talked about Sanchez turning things around, and Mike certainly needed a really good camp after struggling last year.
And struggling also the majority of this spring. He needed a clean inning, and he's got one more pitch to have a clean inning.
And he got him. Almonte is out of there. It's going to be a 1-2-3 8th. We'll go to the bottom half.
Bottom half of the 8th inning, Blue Jays, Tigers all knotted at 2, and here's the Bell Tire play of the game. Back in the 2nd inning, the big fella, Miguel Cabrera, flashing some leather. He leaves his feet, he dives, and then he gets up and he flips it to Jordan Zimmerman covering first base. So the big fella looks like he's in midseason form defensively.
Well, we're headed to the bottom of the 8th inning here in Lakeland. A new pitcher now for the Blue Jays. It's Leonel Campos.
Campos has had a nice spring training, 10 punch outs. He's only walked 4. He's pitched 7 innings, 8 games, the ERA under 4. Fastball, slider, change.
29 years of age, Leonel Campos, part of the San Diego Padres system the last 3 years. And he will face Jacoby Jones to get it started here, and then Jose Iglesias will follow. Jones in the ball game is 0 for 2, reaching on a fielder's choice and then striking out.
Got tied up pretty good by the starter, and Lawrence with that real good 2-seam fastball.
Tigers today 2 runs, 6 hits, and Toronto 2 runs on 3 hits. Castellanos with a home run, and then Miguel Cabrera with an RBI single. That's how the Tigers got their 2. But they haven't scored since the 3rd here this afternoon.
This guy's got some sock in his bat, though. Serious bat speed. If he catches up to 1, he can get the Tigers on the board in a hurry with that 3rd run of the game.
Strike 1 on Jacoby Jones.
That fastball came out of Campos' hand very nicely on the outside black at 94.
'18 appearances out of the Padres bullpen last year. Jones slices one into right field. A base hit. Out of the reach of the diving second baseman Lopes.
He took the first pitch at 94 miles an hour on the outside black, and then he came back with another pitch. This was a breaking ball that was off the plate about 3-4 inches. Nice job by Jones staying with this ball, lacing it the other way. If he could do a lot more of this, Mario, putting the ball in play against right-handers, taking what they give him, there's no doubt that he will have the ability to play some center field at the beginning of the season while J.D. Martinez mends on the disabled list.
Well, here's Iglesias. Tigers have their 7th hit this afternoon.
Yeah, we could see a bunt here, maybe a hit and run. Iglesias can handle the bat. Tigers just trying to score a run, trying to win this game.
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup here. You got a guy that can handle the bat at the plate and a guy that can run at first base.
Jacoby Jones is their best base runner. Dave Clark told me today.
Strike called on Iglesias.
If you're Jacoby Jones, one of the things that you're looking for in this particular situation, if Campos decides to throw a breaking ball, you have to be ready to get down to second base if he bounces it. You have to be thinking along those lines. I'm sure Omar Vizquel already reminded him of that.
Ooh. He's going to go to second, and the throw. Got him with a tag, an outstanding tag at second base, and a ball in the dirt.
We set it up beautifully for him, Mario. I don't think Jacoby was ready to go.
No. Outstanding tag down there at second by Lopes.
Let's look at him. Secondary lead's nice. The ball hits the ground. He did take off right away, but the ball didn't bounce very far away from the catcher, and he was able to fire it down there, and he got the call. Was he out, Mario?
Pretty close. Let's see this.
He said he tagged him on the back. Let's see if the foot's on the back.
Got him. Right there.
Foot. Ooh.
No?
It's close.
Umpire says he's out.
That was a nice job here by Jacoby Jones. I mean, he read the ball down in the dirt perfectly. But the fact of the matter is it only bounced a step or two away from the catcher. And that made all the difference in the world. If that ball gets at least one more foot away from the catcher, Jacoby Jones is safe. Looked like he got him on the hip before that left foot got on the bag.
That was a really good look at it right there. So they're empty now. 1-2 the count on Iglesias. Checked it. Did he go? Did not. Omar Infante waiting on deck. Tigers led 2-0. Jays have since tied it up.
I wonder if Iglesias is going to go with the white shoes this year.
What do you think?
I don't think
yes
so.
Or no?
I don't think so.
You don't like them?
I mean, they're okay. I mean, for him, they work. His cat's
for
flashy
him, they
anyway.
work. Right, exactly. Pulled on the ground to short. Backhanded play there. And a nice pickup at first base. 2 gone.
The second baseman, Omar Infante.
And that'll bring up Omar Infante. You're going to hit one out right here, Rod.
I'll take that. If he gets a fastball about 93, 94, Omar has the ability to do that.
First at bat of the ball game for Infante, replacing Ian Kinsler.
Omar Infante's had a solid spring. 333, no homers, but he's driven in 4. But it doesn't look like they're going to have any room for him, Mario, with Andrew Romine making the team. And it looks like Dixon Machado has a really good opportunity at making the team as well as a backup because he's out of options, which means that Omar Infante will probably have to find himself another address in about a week or so. Unfortunately, he's played well, though.
Bouncing ball to second. That should get him out of the inning, and it does. So the Tigers get a base hit but leave none. On their way to the 9th in Lakeland. Blue Jays 2. We send it down to John Keating standing by with Mike Pelfrey.
All right, Mario, thanks. How unique has this spring been for you? There's less of you. We know that, for starters.
Yeah, obviously, worked hard this offseason, lost 30 pounds. Physically, I feel pretty good. In the baseball side, I mean, I started some games, coming in relief now, and I feel good about where I'm at and like the little changes that I've made, and we'll see what happens.
Have you been told that you're a long reliever now?
They haven't said it. They haven't said anything. Obviously, I've been in the pen the last couple times, so I think that's where that's going to go, or where my opportunity would be. That's fine with me. I want to win and I want to pitch. So as long as I get that opportunity, I'll be good with it.
How different is that role, just in terms of the mechanics and your pitch selection and your pitch counts, things like that, being a relief pitcher as opposed to starting?
It's different. Obviously, I think the biggest thing is, the warm-up and stuff like that. And I think when the phone rings and they say, hey, you got the next inning or whatever, you get a little adrenaline kick. And once you get into it, I think 10 pitches in, you're like, hey, I'm good. I'm good. My body feels good. I'm ready to go. And so obviously, it's a little bit different. You're not necessarily having to pace yourself either for 6 or 7 innings, and but mindset is, I think, coming out of the pen, you got to attack and throw strikes and be aggressive and use your pitches.
Last year didn't go as well as you would have hoped. How much did that eat at you in the offseason?
Well, it bothers me. Obviously, I think anybody that is a competitor or has played the game or any kind of game and they don't do well, obviously it doesn't sit very well. And that was part of my motivation to work hard off season and lose 30 pounds, which I said was my goal, and I've done. And I feel good and just ready to get going.
Mike, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Mike Pelfrey, something just happened inside the ballpark as we were visiting Mario.
Yeah, John, thanks very much. Alex Monsalve, a minor leaguer up from minor league camp to play for the Blue Jays today. He's just homered off Frankie Rodriguez, so it's 3-2 now, favored Toronto.
Yeah, first pitch that he saw from Frankie Rodriguez. Hit it into the berm in left field.
K-Rod getting the 9th inning here, replacing Mike Pelfrey, who had a 1-2-3-8. Derek Loveless, the batter, will shoot this one in the air to center field, playable. One gone.
Frankie was very consistent at the back end of the Tigers bullpen last year, and more often than not, when they gave him the ball, the team was shaking hands at the end of the day, and he was getting a save, which he has done so many times in his miraculous career.
44 saves, second most by a Tigers closer. Here are the numbers last season.
Opponents hit .214 against Frankie last year. Curveball, changeup, fastball, low 90s. Big breaking ball. That changeup has become his signature pitch the last number of years.
Only Zach Britton had more saves last year in the American League than Francisco. Britton had 47, Frankie 44. 2 balls and no strikes on Ryan McBroom, who is homered in this game. A solo shot in the 7th that tied it, but the home run by Monsalve here in the 9th has given the Jays the lead. Now the 2-0.
Ooh, nice change piece.
2 balls, 1 strike.
That's the pitch that Rodriguez gets the majority of his swings and misses on. It's that changeup. It's straight over the top. And he can get the ball to dance to the left. He can get the ball to dance to the right. He's got great action on that changeup. Look out, Frankie. Look out, Frankie.
Let's go, Ryan.
Change up on the previous pitch. He comes back with a breaking ball to get strike 2. Now he can go elevate the fastball if he wants to get a swing and miss there, or he can simply go right back to that changeup to get the strikeout.
For Frankie Rodriguez, 430 career saves. That is 4th all time. Mariano Rivera 1st.
Boatload.
Trevor Hoffman 2nd. And Lee Smith 3rd on that list.
Big league.
Big league. And then Francisco. Two and 2 on Ryan McBroom. Frankie has his first strikeout of the day. 2 gone.
And nothing wrong with the off-speed pitches today for Rodriguez, whether it be the changeup or the curveball. Both have real nice action on them this afternoon.
Here is Christian Lopes. First at bat of the ball game today. He'll drive one high in the air to left field. That ball is hit well. It's going to the track. It's going to the wall, and that ball is going to carry out. It's gone. A solo shot for Lopes, the second home run in the inning. So Kieron has given up a couple of long balls here.
Yeah, get him out of your system now.
Good point. 4-2 ball game. Here's Emilio Guerrero. Ball 1.
Speaking of Guerrero, the Blue Jays have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in their organization, and they say that he is a can't-miss prospect, Mario, that is going to be an outstanding big league player. Of course, his daddy is a Hall of Fame player.
Well, I was looking at some video of some of their best prospects, and Guerrero was one guy that came up, and his whole approach, his stance, his swing, everything
looks like his daddy.
Oh, everything.
Could his daddy play or what?
Oh, man.
I mean, he was 6'5". He could run. He had power. I mean, he nearly was a 40-40 guy, or did he make it to the 40-40 club that one year?
He may have. He was one of the best bad ball hitters that I've ever seen.
I know one year he missed with one shy of something, but he was close. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero was an unbelievable player. Won an MVP.
There's a strike called. Vladimir went 39-40.
Oh, he
just
missed it by one.
Yeah, by one home run. 39 homers, 40 stolen bases for the Expos.
That was for the Expos.
That's for the Expos. Yeah, back in 2002. Swing and a miss.
He could play. So if his son is anything like him, boy, they got themselves a really nice player.
Little chopper foul down the third base line.
Final week of spring training, partner.
It's here.
1 week to go. The ball club will be in Chicago a week from tonight.
Into left field for the final out of the inning. A couple of home runs, though, for the Blue Jays. Solo shots. They've taken the lead as we go to the bottom of the ninth. Jays have taken the lead 4-2 as we go to the bottom of the ninth inning. Last call for the Tigers. Don't forget, April in the D is right around the corner. And what better way to mark an amazing month in Detroit sports by taking a run through our city streets. Sign up for the Fox Sports Detroit I Ran the D 5K run. Very close to selling out. There will be no sign-ups on race day, so go to foxsportsdetroit.com and sign up. We have a new pitcher now for the Toronto Blue Jays. He's a left-hander. Jeff Beliveau will take over.
Nice spring for Beliveau. At 245 earned run average in 8 games, 7 1/3. Looks like he might be a situational guy. Does have 8 strikeouts in the 7 1/3 innings that he's pitched.
So the Tigers find themselves down by a couple of runs now. Andrew Romine will get his first bat of the ball game. Romine, then Navarro.
Andrew Romine with the World Baseball Classic being played this spring has played more this year than he's ever played in any spring training, and he's had a nice spring. 339 with a couple homers. He's driven in 8, and he's played everywhere on the field.
And Romine will look at a strike to get things started here in the bottom of the ninth.
Although technically Romine is probably the 25th man on the roster with what he brings to the team. But he's also a guy that knows he's on the team when he comes to spring training.
That's a great point, yeah. Yeah, it's
you know what I mean?
Usually those guys are just, you know, kind of hoping.
The last guys.
Yeah.
You know, he knows he's a utility player, but he also knew when he came to spring training on February 14th, if he didn't get hurt, he was going to be in Chicago on April 3rd.
And he'll be there. Here's the 1-1 to Romine. Andrew, 8 different positions last year. He played every position but catch, and that's something that he, well, he probably doesn't enjoy all that much, would like to do. He'd like to play all 9 in a single game.
I was talking to Tigers third base coach Dave Clark before the game today, and he says he actually likes Andrew Romine in center field. And you were talking about this earlier. I mean, you got a guy that can play up the middle at shortstop and second base and can also spell you in center field. There's Dave Clark. He handles the outfielders here along with his third base coaching duties.
2-2 on Romine. Swing and a miss. He got him to chase. 1 gone in the 9th inning. That last pitch about eye high, and Romine couldn't hold back.
And it was only 91 miles an hour, but after all the slow breaking balls that Beliveau was featuring there, Andrew Romine, that 91 mile per hour fastball looked like it was about 95.
Here is Navarro with 1 gone. Navarro came on to replace Miguel Cabrera. Miggy got his 2 at-bats here today. Was 1 for 2 with an RBI single. And Navarro looks at ball 1 high. Beliveau last year with the Tampa Bay Rays, actually 2 years ago with the Rays, in the big leagues. Also big league time with the Cubs. He spent all of last year in the minor leagues. There's a swing and a miss. That was with the Orioles organization. One and one on Efren Navarro. That bends inside. 2 balls and 1 strike. The Tigers got tomorrow. They'll be at Disney tomorrow. They got Atlanta.
They travel pretty much every single game with the exception of next Wednesday, right?
Yep, you're absolutely right. Everything else is on the road. They will finish out the spring camp with 2 in Miami against the Marlins. Way inside. 3-1 now on Navarro. Daniel Norris scheduled to go tomorrow night. They'll be playing a night game against Atlanta. And he lost him. Ball 4. It's a 1-out walk. No, he rang him up. No, he walked. All right, I thought he was headed back to the bench. Now Collins will pinch hit for Victor Martinez, who got 3 at-bats as the DH today. Here's where Tyler shined last year. Was a pretty good pinch hitter. Although he didn't have too many opportunities. He was 3 for 10.
Last year, Tyler Collins took some really positive steps in just kind of slowing the game down, allowing the game to come to him, not trying to force the action. It's very difficult to do when you're a young player. You're not getting an opportunity to play every day as you did down in the minor leagues. Then you come to the big leagues and you're only getting at bats against right-handers. It's tough to keep yourself on that same even keel that you were able to do while you're in the minors. But toward the tail end of last year, he did a nice job in the 56 games that he played in. Ended up with 4 homers and 15 driven in. More than likely, he makes the team this year. He's out of options. He'll get some nice at-bats against tough right-handed pitching.
One of the home runs that Collins hit last year came in a pinch hitting role in Chicago in the 9th inning.
Tigers hit 3 home runs in that particular inning, didn't they?
They did. That's in there. A strike called on Tyler.
Well, Salty hit 1. Can't remember who hit the other one.
Collins, Saltalamacchia, and I can't remember either. Here's the 1-1. 2 balls, 1 strike now on Collins. Swing and a miss. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Tigers today sent down Anthony Gose, so he's been trimmed from the competition. And of course, with the injury to J.D. Martinez, Collins seems like a lock now. I know what Presley's had a really good spring in the outfield for the Tigers.
And Mikey Matuk has kind of come on lately, and he's performed a whole lot better than he was performing last year. I think at the when the spring training began, Matuk was probably the guy they thought would be the center fielder when the season began with his experience in that position.
I agree with you.
But he slowed down. He didn't perform as well. And the Jacoby Jones kid kind of took off.
And Mikey has moved to the on-deck circle. Meanwhile, 3-2 on Tyler Collins. And he lost him. Ball 4. Back-to-back walks for the Tigers here in the 9th.
Well, if you're DeMarlo Hale, who is acting as the manager today for John Gibbons, you're not happy with the fact that you've given the pitcher a couple of left-handers to face, and he's walked them both.
Well, last year he had a fine season in the minor leagues. All in relief pretty much for the Baltimore Orioles, AA and Single-A.
I mean, if you're left-handed and you're considered a situational guy, you cannot be walking the left-handers late in the game. You got to throw strikes. Let them put the ball in play.
Here is Mikey Matuk. That'll get away from the catcher, but not far enough.
You know, I was talking to Mikey before the game today, and he says he loves playing center field. He feels like center field is the easiest position for any outfielder that plays out there. But he says he's also as comfortable playing left field and right field, which he has done a lot of in his major league career. Spent the entire year last year, for the most part, with the Tampa Bay Rays.
Turn 2.
Matuk last year with injuries that slowed him down, several different injuries with the Rays. Two balls and no strikes. Now we'll get a visit out to the mound. Beliveau struck out Romine to start the inning, but even that was on a ball that was out of the strike zone.
That's right.
And then he came back to walk Navarro, walked Collins, and now he's in danger of walking Matuk, or at least has fallen behind him 2-0. Blue Jays hit a pair of home runs in the top of the ninth. 2 solo shots to grab the lead.
Well, if you're Mikey Montook, you know you're going to get a fastball here beyond a shadow of a doubt. If you do get that fastball, you might as well try to hit it out of here and walk off the Toronto Blue Jays today.
All right, I'm in.
Ooh, he dropped a breaking ball in there on him. 2-0.
No heater there.
He didn't get the heater. Little cut fastball on the outside.
Matuk came into this ball game batting just .213 this spring. Here's the 2-1. 3-1.
You know, another thing regarding Mikey Matuk is the fact that he has one option left. So if the Tigers wanted to, you know, they could buy themselves some time and they could send him down to the minor leagues if they wanted to do some other things with their outfield positions.
Mikey last year broke his hand, suffered an oblique injury as well. That short-circuited his season.
Yeah, he had a rough one.
Here's the 3-1. And he lost in ball 4. That's going to load the bases. 3 consecutive walks after the strikeout of Romine. And Steven Moya will check in.
Yeah, nobody warming up in the Blue Jays bullpen, so this is all they got.
Bellamo has thrown 21 pitches already, and now he's got Moya to deal with. Steven 1 for 3 today. Navarro at third, Collins at second, and Matuk at first base. Here's Moya trying to make a statement here late in camp. Swing and a miss. Came out of his shoes there. You know, one of the issues, Rod, last year for Moya was defense, and how he really just struggled defensively in the big leagues.
Yeah, he did. I mean, it got to a point where you really couldn't put him out there because he was not, he lacked so much confidence. And then it started to spill over to his offensive game, and that's not a good thing.
Got an opportunity here with the bases loaded.
Oh, that bat looks like a toothpick in his hand. I know that. Guy's 6 feet 6 inches. Oh.
In on his hands, rolled slowly toward third. They'll get the out at first base. A run will score, an RBI for Moya, but there are 2 outs. 4-3 ball game. And now Miguel Gonzalez with 2 away. Tying run down to third, winning run at second with 2 outs here in the ninth. Ball 1.
And Belleville having a very difficult time of repeating his arm slot, his delivery. And just about every single pitch to the right-handers have been up and away. Missing to the left-handers as well.
Over the plate.
2-0.
Over the plate.
Belleville walked Navarro, walked Collins, walked Matuk. Way outside. 3 balls and no strikes now on Miguel Gonzalez.
If I'm Brad here, I green light him. You know he's trying to throw a strike. You know he's going to lay it right down the middle. They give Gonzalez an opportunity to win the game with a base hit. Green lighting.
Nowhere near the plate. Ball 4. That's going to load the bases. That is 4 walks in this inning for Belleville.
That's going to be it for him as well. DeMarlo Hale, the acting manager, is going to have to go out and get Belleville, which is what he did not want to do.
27 pitches.
And the majority of them were out of the strike zone.
Yeah, and with the 4 walks, not a good taste for Belleville as he leaves the mound here, and the Jays will go back to the bullpen. We'll step aside. Tigers threatening here in the ninth. Tigers have them loaded here in the bottom of the ninth inning with a 4-3 score. The Blue Jays in the lead. Belleville couldn't finish out the inning, and so DeMarlo Hale had to go back to the bullpen. Here is Brad Allen, who is coming up from the minor league camp. His first appearance with the big club here.
Yeah, Brad had to get ready in a hurry after Belleville struggled with his command, and they had to wait until he got ready, and then DeMarlo Hale finally went out to get him.
Jacoby Jones will face Allen.
Jacoby Jones had the game-winning hit just a couple of days ago on our air when the score was tied 2-2 going into the bottom half of the 10th inning. He had a game winner. He can do it again today.
So here is Jones now with the bases full. Tigers down by a run, 2 outs in the ninth.
And Jacoby with already 2 singles this afternoon.
Jones had a base hit to start things off in the 9th inning, but was caught trying to advance on a ball in the dirt. And now he's trying to win it with a base hit. And a swing and a miss, 0-1.
Good, healthy swing by the youngster, Jacoby Jones. That fastball at 92 miles an hour out of the hand of Allen. Swing and a miss, same results. 0-2. And more than likely, Allen will go just a tick higher with the next fastball. The first one was at the belt buckle. The second one maybe 6 inches higher. More than likely, he'll go upstairs a little higher with the next fastball to see if they can get Jacoby Jones to chase for the final swing of the game. Here we go.
Popped him up. Should do it. Shallow left field, and the Jays will hold on and win this one. Tigers get 4 walks in the 9th inning. They score a run. But in the end, the Blue Jays will hold on to win this game by a score of 4-3. We'll step aside, come back, and wrap things up from Lakeland.